Rawr. Got you, Lark. No you didn't. I protest. I dodged. You can't always dodge, Lark, one of the other kids protests. His name is Danny. It's no fun that way. But I'm the hunter. I protest. The hunter gets to win. Shoo pew. I fire some more invisible arrows at the menagerie of whiny monsters before me, many of whom shriek excitedly and pretend to dodge, many more of whom gasp dramatically, lolling out their tongues as they roll over in a comically tame facsimile of death. But it's more fun if we get to hurt you sometimes. Danny insists. I leap and teeth sink into flesh, ripping out a delicious, oozing chunk of human meat as I rush by. I am too fast, and 5 different retaliations miss me at once as I swallow my prize. Humans taste so good. Dashing back through a bush, breaking line of sight and fleeing to strike again at the next moment of vulnerability, I laugh with joy. This is so much fun, huh? I mutter softly. It used to be, didn't it? I wonder how fun it would be to eat Danny, right here and right now. Humans would go on high alert instantly, they'd converge on me from all sides. But I know now that all humans are different, and the vast majority of them don't even begin to approach the kind of strength that I have consistently outmaneuvered in the past. It would be exciting, in a way, to prove my superiority over every single human in this massive city. No matter how much the hunger in my belly screams me to do it, however, I know that there's not a chance I could convince myself to follow through. Not anymore. Only revulsion, only heart-clenching agony remains, no matter how vivid my memories of joy. Once again, I have gone many days without eating. The constant hunger is joined by pain, an aching need that gets progressively more and more difficult to resist with each passing hour. I suspect I am probably starting to die. Lark. We're going to get you, a girl named Sabrina giggles, jumping at me from behind. I step to the side, and she careens past me, laughing all the while. Pew pew, I say, shooting 2 more arrows. I have slain all the monsters. Someone else can be the hunter now. The kids erupt into a gleeful contest over the right to be the next hero in the story. Most of them, I know, are between 5 and 6 years old. 6 years. I can't possibly understand that much time. It's so strange to me that humans take so long to learn and to grow. Is it because they forget? August said that he's many times that age. I am only a few months old, not even 1 year, and yet I'm already starting to feel like these human children are a bit simple. Maybe that's the hunger talking, however. These games are usually super fun. Humans apparently get pretty grumpy when they are hungry, and perhaps I am the same. I am different from humans in many ways, but it is the similarities that hurt me. In some ways I wish I'd never met August, never learned his lessons. But I did. And now, I can't forget. Ever. As I settle back into pretending to be the monster, getting comfortable in my role as a thing to be killed, I suddenly feel death start to approach. Not the fictional death I expected or even death from starvation. No, this is the kind of death I faced in the forest all those days ago. I shiver, muscles instinctively tensing. Another monster is coming for me, it seems. This is a very odd feeling. I never expected to encounter another monster within the human city. I smell it, though. In some ways it is familiar, but in most ways it is new. What sort of monster would be in the city and not cause a panic? I suppose the answer to that is obvious, a monster like me. A monster that the humans do not see or do not recognize as not one of them. Indecision keeps my body still. Okay, so I smell a monster in the city. So what? If the humans haven't noticed it, it probably isn't hurting anyone. So do I just stay here and keep playing? Sure, why not? I like playing. It may as well be what I do while I starve to death. Unfortunately, however, it soon becomes clear that the monster is getting closer to me. In fact, though it's certainly taking its sweet time, I'm pretty sure it's headed right for me. I glance at the others. My friends, I think, even if I don't know any of them particularly well. I don't know what to do. Do I stay and try to protect them? Do I leave and lure the monster somewhere else? I spend so long hesitating that the decision is made for me. I feel the monster circling around the clearing. The courtyard, I suppose it's called. It smells much more powerful than I am. Not that I'm particularly intimidated by this, fighting things stronger than I am is how I survived the forest. But as it moves, I soon find myself assaulted with more familiar scents. It's the group that took Claretta. They're also here, albeit missing 2 members. Hopefully I can just hide and they'll fight the monster for me. Although if it's a monster disguised as a person, could that possibly be the ideal meal? Strength and food without losing the body I feel so attached to now. Yet as the monster finally gets close enough for me to spot, all that anticipation drops to nothing. As she steps into the courtyard I and my friends have monopolized for a rousing game of hunter versus monster, I recognize the person approaching me. She smells like a monster, but I've met this one before and called her human. Thinking back, the smell is an obvious evolution from that of my memories. The hunter that always knew where I was, that foiled every ambush, is back. There's no chance she doesn't recognize me in kind. As the last time we met, she is dressed for battle. Unlike other humans that wear many things, the short woman's leather armor fits her so naturally that I struggle to imagine her wearing anything else. Her long, black hair is tamed only by the cheap, hole-covered hooded cloak that trails lightly behind her as she approaches. Uncaring for the stares it evokes, her spear is drawn, something about the tip catching my eye in the same way that I keep trying to focus on invisible flashes of movement around her body. Her face is blank and expressionless, almost frighteningly so compared to the variety of emotional displays I'm used to seeing on humans. And her eyes, they're different from last time. Blue instead of green, with the pupil elongated ever so slightly on the top and bottom in a way that reminds me somewhat of the many cat cells I once consumed. Yet it's still unmistakably her. I did not think humans ever changed their eye color, but perhaps I am wrong. Or perhaps I should trust my smell, and not consider her human. Still, no sense being impolite. August insists I always be polite. "Hello, Vita," I greet her, nodding politely once she gets close enough. Her head tilts to the side as an expression of very mild surprise passes over it for a moment. The reaction is a bit chilling, however, considering that she does not at all look in my direction as she makes it. Nor when she responds. She's here to fight me to the death, but it's like I'm barely even being considered. "Hey," Vita answers me. "This isn't really what I expected, but I can work with it." "Sorry, kids, but you're all going to have to leave now." "Lark, do you know this person?" Danny whispers to me. "Yeah," I say. "She's a hunter. She kills monsters." "That's so cool." Danny fawns. "You should listen to her and leave," I tell them, "because she has a spear." The other kids consider my impeccable logic and agree that yes, they should probably listen to the hunter with the spear. Regretfully they disperse, seeking other areas to pretend to stab or eat each other. Vita's gaze sweeps around as they leave, eventually settling partly on me though still not entirely. "My team didn't think that would work," Vita comments. "They thought you would take hostages, or just outright start having snacks. But you changed a lot, didn't you? I'm surprised you remember my name." I swallow, stepping back as she steps forward. "I remember everything," I tell her. "My memory is perfect." "Really?" she wonders. "That must suck." I can't help but laugh at that, for some reason. There's just some dark humor in the knowledge that this person somehow understood immediately. She and her team are the only ones in this city that know what I am and understand what it means, so naturally they're here to kill me. How can I not laugh? She takes that opening to attack. I expected her to be faster than before, but not this fast. The spear jabs outwards and I twist away, catching a cut across my upper left arm. My blood stains the tip of the spear black, and as it pulls away I feel some part of me go with it, hunger taking a firmer hold on my mind. I leap backwards to try and make as much space as I can as shocked and outraged gasps erupt around us. Vita may have cleared the immediate area, but we're hardly alone. Very few places in the human city are, and now I know it looks like she just randomly tried to skewer a child. Hunter business. Vita shouts at them. I don't really have the luxury of sticking around to figure out how effective that is, nor do I really care. My limbs feel like they're moving through water as I agonizingly push myself to flee, only to find that this hunter can keep up with me. I'm fairly injured and have barely started to move, but already I'm panting for breath and feeling the burden of exhaustion. I haven't eaten anything. I've been waiting for death, yet now the only thing on my mind is the fear of it. The spear stabs me again, and I get hungrier. Perhaps more importantly, it tears through my cloak, revealing one of my extra arms hidden underneath. I suppose I shouldn't bother holding back anyway. I tear my mask from my face, expecting to need peripheral vision not to mention access to my teeth. My blood starts to boil, filled with the certainty that everything I have started to love here is now, in this singular moment, gone forever. With the thing behind the mask revealed, I can never return to this city. I would have left them all alone. I would have died peacefully. But if this Vita, whatever Vita is, wants to force my hunger out, she can be the one to quiet it again. Something invisible streaks towards me and I bite down on it, eliciting a wince from the hunter. Finally, I reach the edge of the courtyard, clambering straight up the side of the building. Humans struggle with the vertical, and I need to make as much space as possible so I have the time to fight smart. Here I go again, I suppose. Already, the thought of victory against unassailable odds fills me with unwanted anticipation. It's fun to fight hunters, but that's wrong. Hunters are good guys and they're supposed to win in the end. No time for these stupid thoughts. I need to focus. Now in an alley between two buildings, I can start actually fighting. I shoot a spread of webs from one hand, anchoring them to the wall of one building before pressing their other end into the opposite. When Vita runs down this path after me, she will inevitably hit my webs or at least be forced to cut them, which will give me an opening to. I look up, eyes going wide as a chitinous, hungering spear tip plunges towards them. I dodge too slowly, avoiding the death blow to my skull at the cost of letting the spear open a gash from my sternum to my belly, maybe 20 degrees off from impaling me through the chest. Rather than jump off the building where I did, the hunter leapt all the way to another rooftop, bypassed the alley entirely, and struck from above. Like she knew what I was planning. I forgot, I'm not fighting monsters. I'm fighting creatures as smart as I am with the strength of monsters. I'm no stranger to deadly fights, though. Even as the cut sprays my blood on the ground, I see the inevitable outcome. Vita is falling. She can't change her trajectory, and the landing won't be something she can instantly move out of. I've sacrificed a nasty wound for it, but in return I can bite out her throat. Her mistake, her loss. But I take one look at her face, even as blank as it is, and I bind her in webs instead of ending her life. With the swipe of my claws, 5 threads get planted on her body, elongating at my command and letting me circle around her, binding her tight. I feel multiple invisible things jab towards me, and though I manage to bite one, the other 2 push into me, filling me with such insurmountable dread I cannot choose any option other than to cut my threads short and leap away as fast as possible. I've lost my chance to tie her up as thoroughly as I'd hoped to, but my threads are still on her and they are strong. It should be enough to stop her from. Untie me, Vita orders. At first I'm confused. I don't follow that command, because why would I? But my threads do. Impossibly, they obey her. They come apart of their own apparent volition as I scurry away, a grin blooming on the hunter's lips as for the first time her eyes lock directly onto mine. Not a human, my instincts scream. Not a human at all. Catch her, the monster orders. She lunges at me again, a burst of speed so fast I'm sure I hear something in her body crack. Even expecting it, I fail to dodge, her weapon opening a deep gash right above my hip bone, once again rousing the ever-present roar of my hunger to greater heights. Fine. If that's what she wants, fine. My own threads, attached to her body, reach for me as I leap towards her in kind, but nothing cuts through my threads as easily as my own claws. I destroy the traitorous strands, mouth aiming for my favorite target, the knee. Once again, Vita's wild strike gives me a clean opening to make my assault, and this time I don't hold back. Teeth tearing easily through layers of armor and muscle, I quickly swallow the first bite of proper meat I've had in days, feeling it charge my body with ecstasy. It's the greatest thing I've ever tasted, so much power flowing through so little space that my smaller wounds close in mere moments, the blood I've been losing replenished as my mind and my strength greedily drink that power dry to return me to working order. And best of all, I've hamstrung her, which means I've as good as won. The back of her knee is gouged so deep I see more bone than tendon. That whole leg is useless. Then Vita draws a knife and pivots on that leg anyway, cleaving straight through my bicep and removing one of my arms above the elbow. Immediately, I feel the invisible force surrounding her strike towards me again, but I don't bother to bite at one this time. She's not human. She's barely even a monster. I think back to just seconds before when I had the arrogant idea that not biting out her throat was sparing her and almost laugh at myself. Would that have even done anything? What can I do if injury doesn't injure? Fear far outstrips my instinct, my apathy, and my hunger, and I turn to flee as fast as I possibly can. I don't know why I bother. I've lost everything now, so why not my life too? The monster moves to chase me, but a shout slows her. Vita! Don't you dare! Penelope! I've almost got her. Vita protests. No, comes the responding shriek, rapidly getting quieter as I make distance. Let the others handle it. You are going to stay right there and let me treat you before you bleed out all over the road. What were you thinking, starting the fight here? Why didn't you stick to the plan? Stuff happened, I improvised. Don't worry, she's not going to. Gasps of shock and screams of terror drown out the rest of the conversation as I dash through the city, bleeding and exposed for what I truly am. Nothing but blind panic fuels my decisions now. Down on 5 limbs I sprint outside the city, flee past the merchant stalls, and soon find myself in the only place I have left to go. The one spot in the world that I've been promised will always be safe for me. Clothes torn, mask lost, body dripping darkness, I lock myself in the bathroom of August's hut and start to cry. Dripping tears mix with black splotches of blood as I sob quietly on the floor, one lower arm clutching the stub of my other in a half-hearted attempt to prevent myself from bleeding out. My fight with Vita left me broken, and I know her biomancer ally will heal off all the damage I managed to do to her. This isn't even accounting for the rest of her team, any of which could easily slay me now. Even if they didn't see where I went, which I doubt, I left a trail of my blood here. Lightheaded and woozy, I can barely even think straight. I wonder what it will be like to experience unconsciousness like humans do. This isn't my nest. I don't have a stored meal to retreat to. I haven't had a meal at all in ugh, I could count the days, but I just want to do nothing at all. It's safe here, he told me. Well, I'm here, but I doubt it will be safe. I'm not sure I want it to be. I am so tired. So done. I hear the door to the cabin open. I wonder which hunter is here to slay the monster first. Lark? August asks. Are you in here? My breath catches. No. Not him. Not now. He can't see me like this. Yet I hear him move further inside, closing the outer door behind him. Is everything all right? Of course nothing is all right. I want him, need him to leave. I'm dying, August. Just let me. I try to be as quiet as I can, hoping he'll leave me alone, but a sob shakes out of me. My body, ever the betrayer to my mind. Lark. August calls again. Lark, is that you? Are you hurt? Am I hurt? Just a few bites on any of the hundreds of people I passed on the way here, and I would be fighting fit. Yet I didn't. I can't. I can't ever go back, and the thought of even opening my jaws at them crushes my heart. He knocks on the door to the bathroom. Lark. Let me know you're here or I'm coming in. Go away. I snap at him. Before August, I'd never even thought about things this way. I had a plan. But I abandoned it. Why? Lark, what's this on the floor? August asks seriously, once again listening but refusing to obey. He's always been like this. I abandoned the plan because I was happy. He taught me what happiness is. Why couldn't he have stopped there? Why wasn't that enough? I hear him kneel down, investigating the splotches of blood I trailed on his floor. There's a lot more of it now, here in the bathroom. I'm sitting in quite the puddle. It is so hard to think. Lark. Lark. Is this blood? Lark. Go away. I demand again. Leave. There's a pause, the only sound in the house my ragged, slowing breaths. Tell me you're okay, August says, fear in his voice. Or I'm coming in there. I'm not going to lie to August. I can't. But I can tell him something I know is true. You promised you wouldn't come in, I remind him. Not unless I said you could. I also promised this place would be safe for you, he counters. So tell me you're okay, and I will leave you alone. How can I get him to hate me, to leave me to die? The black stuff is my blood, I admit. I'm not human. I never was. Moments later, there's a crash as August slams his body into the bathroom door, breaking the lock. He spots me then, a look of horror on his face. He sees what I am. The last thing I wanted was to know the look on his face when he sees what I am. But he does not flee. He tears his shirt off his body, the slightest splash ringing in the small room as he quickly kneels beside me, staining his pants with my blood. Grabbing my stump of an arm, he starts tying cloth around it, stemming the flow. Why? He smells so good. Stop it, I snarl at him, baring my teeth. Teeth still stained red with a hunter's blood. Why doesn't he run? Don't try to talk, August huffs back, false calm obvious in his voice. Does he think I won't notice? His terror. What is he trying to prove? I try to push him away, but my arms are so heavy. I killed Sharif's family, I choke out, and for an instant he pauses. Good. Leave. Let me die. But just a moment later, he continues his work. Did you now, is all he says, tightening and securing the bandages over my arm before moving the rest of my body. I did, I confirm. I watched the father scream while I ate his wife. My imagination runs wild with similar things I could do to August. I'm so hungry. So cold. He's just an old man, and it would be so easy. That's an awfully cruel and evil thing to do, August opines, and though I already knew it to be true, hearing it feels like an arrow carved open my heart. But he doesn't stop binding my wounds. Then let me die, I beg him. Run away. I can tell you're afraid. I am, he retorts. I'm afraid of leaving you here alone. I'm afraid you'll die before I do. I'm a monster. I shout at him, as best I'm able. You don't know what I've done. No, but I know you, he says firmly. I suspected for a long time you probably weren't human. And it sounds like you have much to be held to account for, if you killed Sharif's family. With one hand, he pushes my chin very lightly up, to help me look him in the eyes. But as far as I'm concerned, you are my family. My eyes go wide. No. No, anything but that. Why, I breathe, fearing I know the answer. Because from the moment I met you I knew you needed one, August answers. How could I not give it to you? You knew so little of the world. You are a child, Lark. And all children need parents, because a child can't be expected to know anything if they are not taught and shown. To love, you must be loved. To grow wise, you must see wisdom. To respect others, you must be given respect. A parent leads by example. If I could not teach you in time to prevent you from making a mistake, then it is I. No. Who? No. Aired. Shut up. I screech, jumping my feet and stepping away only to stumble and collapse again a second later. August catches me, and I nearly bite his throat out. He can't do this. He can't do this again. Don't make me regret this, too, I beg him. He just looks at me with sad eyes, and no weapon in the world could hurt more. You learn too fast for your own good, he says quietly. You were not this mature just a 10 days ago. Time normally helps us process and forget. I don't forget anything, I tell him. I can't. I can't handle anything more. Please. Just leave. Woozy and hysterical, I barely understand myself anymore. Everything is just hunger and sadness and bubbling rage. I hate all this. I hate ever learning any of it. I just want it all to end, I whisper. Let me die. He looks at me again, eyes far too piercing. If you truly wanted to die, he asks softly, why would you have come all this way to a safe place? Because while I hate life, I fear death, and no matter how I try to pretend I'm just as much of a slave to instinct as I was when I was born. None of these words can leave me, though, because as if to prove the point my body erupts again into uncontrollable sobs. Two old arms wrap around me, pulling me into a hug. You have your whole life ahead of you, Lark, August says, and it sounds like a curse. There is yet more good you can do for this world than the good you have taken from it. You must always believe this. You can always grow to be better. And I know you have the potential to be great at anything you choose to be. But why should I have to? A dark thought asks inside me. I did not care before this. I was happy here, with him, but I was happy before, too. I was happy with my flowers and my Claretta and my home long before anyone came by to destroy my things and chase me away. Why should I have to hate myself now for things I loved before? Why does that matter? How is that fair? My wounds drip blacker as my heart starts to beat faster in my chest. It's not fair. It's not right. And it's because of August, the hunger in me sneers. It's his fault, isn't it? All because he had to take me in and be kind to me and make me care until he could show me every way I deserve the torture promised to the worst souls in the world. What sort of kindness is that? What sort of family? Something screams inside me to stop, but as my wounds throb harder and my head feels lighter those thoughts become less and less distinct, flittering and fraying as fight or flight replaces them with anger. He broke his promise because he came into this room. And he broke his promise because he hurt me. He's hurt me more than everyone else in my life combined, and now he wants me to hurt more. How have I not seen this? He wants me to spend an entire lifetime, incomprehensible years of existence, in an unending, unceasing torture. He wants me to regret this forever, to hate myself forever, to fight against a memory that I can never unsee. How dare he? How dare he? My teeth clamp down, the oh-so-familiar taste of blood flowing into my mouth. August's body stiffens in shock, but he doesn't release the embrace. My teeth finish cutting through his shoulder, and I swallow. It hurts so much. How dare he? He doesn't have the right. A familiar scent wafts into my nose. The hunter. The monster that kills monsters. She's here. I bite down again, rage to the point of insanity filling my body. She found me. This isn't even a safe place. Liar. Liar. I swallow again, August's left arm going limp, now only able to hug me with half his body. I want to scream. I bite again. There's a slam as something hits the front door and fails to break it. I bite again as the door shatters, a shouting voice entering our once home. I bite again and my missing arm starts to regrow fast enough to tear the makeshift bandages he used to save my life. I bite again, and feel his one remaining arm softly stroke the back of my head. I bite again, and the flesh tastes like ash. Sobbing into the bloody shoulder of a dead man, it takes me a moment to register that the hunter is in the room. Vita stares at nothing, wearing the slightest expression of confusion and bewilderment. Her spear is in hand, but not pointing at me. No attack comes. I leap past her, claws scraping into the wood floor as I turn to bolt out of the building. Glancing behind me, an odd pain hits when I see that she does not chase me. Instead, she kneels down, staring at the corpse I left behind with interest. I turn, fleeing into the forest, and immediately an arrow nearly tears me in two, knocking me to the ground by the sheer force of it passing. What was that? I leap away and instant later a gout of fire devours the spot I just stood, but as I dodge a sword catches the motion and cleaves through my rib. But still, alas, not enough to kill. Twisting, I grab the arm holding the blade and let the momentum of the strike drag me away from another arrow as I bite down. The flesh is strange and stale and bloodless, attached to a man with no head. But it still tastes wonderful. No time to question it, I take another bite to fill the hole punched through my lung and rush out of the forest, dodging two more arrows that crack the ground less than an inch from my body. Forest apparently hostile to me, I'm nearly blinded by tears as I find myself forced back towards the city. Countless arrows rain from the guard towers as I return, but they lack both the force and the accuracy of what I can only suspect was Netta. So, was the swordsman Alan? How is he alive with no blood and no head? I've no time or real desire to consider it. I avoid or simply claw the barrage of arrows out of the sky and breach the city. Swarms of humans both furious and frightened span this place, kicked into a frenzy by my presence. But they are slow and I am clever. Many of the buildings, both large and small, have no people inside for much if not all of each day. And I must find a safe place to hide, because when I let myself think what I am about to think I will be crippled forever. Inside a two-room shed full of tools, I lock myself in, web the entrance, and curl up in a ball to die. The unforgivable, unassailable weight of what I have done is too much. How could I know? What a stupid question. Of course this is how it turned out. I am a monster. This was going to happen from the start, and it didn't become any less inevitable just because I loved him. The reality is, I did know. I'm not stupid. From the moment Claretta taught me to speak I understood that other creatures feel things. That they have emotions, that if I were in their situation I would suffer. The thought was just so abstract it was no more noteworthy than the acknowledgement that the sky is yellow. It was a fact I was aware of, not one I gave any significant care or thought. But I knew. I knew when Fulvia screamed, I understood when Claretta wished me death, and I recognized the pain when I made a man watch me eat his wife. I knew. The only thing I truly didn't understand was why any of my atrocities started to hurt. But they do now and they will. Not. Stop. I should not be alive. I should not exist. August was wrong about me. I can't change, I can't improve, and I would not deserve any sort of peace I could acquire from those actions. But I just can't seem to let myself die. Perhaps I'm being kept alive in order to ensure that I suffer more. I suppose I deserve it. It just wasn't enough to eat my first friend's father. I had to go and eat my own, too. The door behind me is suddenly forced open. I relax. The hunter is here, I smell her. Yet I am not running or fighting. Finally, it can end. I wait in silence as she hacks away at my webs, slicing them apart with a blade and raw strength. She walks slowly into the room, closing the door behind herself. And then I find myself cursed once more, as she sits down next to me. Instead of ending my life. Silence stretches between us, my back to her as I remain curled up on the floor. What is she doing here? Why am I alive? I feel watched, judged, but I can't bring myself to ask. Why do I have to be curious? Really, that failing is what ruined me, not the only man to ever treat me with respect. Eventually, Vita reaches over and grabs one of my ears. She yanks it painfully, eliciting a snarl from me but nothing else. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to do anything. I'm done. Even when she takes her knife and saws the ear completely off, I barely let even a pained hiss escape my lips. Vita hums to herself, pocketing the chunk of my body. All right, then. Yanking on my hair, she pulls me out of my curled-up position on the floor, making me look at her face. Then, she grabs my jaw in one hand and forces it open. With the butt of her knife, she slams down on my teeth. Pain shoots through my skull, but still I refuse to move. After a few hard strikes, she sets the knife down, sticks her hand inside my mouth, grabs the loosened tooth, and starts to pull. Slowly, it tears out from my gums until it is finally free, blood gushing into my mouth as she pockets the tooth as well. I could so easily bite off her hand, but I don't. Not even when she batters and grabs the next tooth, or the next, or the next. Half my skull's worth of teeth later, the monster grins, her eyes as unfocused as ever. There, she says with a hint of self-satisfaction, that should be enough to fake your death. It takes me a moment to register the words, before the horror of them finally dawns on me. No, I whisper, bloody mouth gurgling slightly. You're supposed to kill me. The hunter shrugs. I have been convinced not to, she says. I'm a monster. I snap. I'm not going to do anything but hurt people. Kill me. Vita responds by grabbing my hair again, and shoving her other arm down my throat. The movement is instant, expressionless, and devoid of fear. Food, I think to myself. So close, so easy. Bite my arm off, she dares me, and I will happily slay you here and now. I shiver. Bite down, I order myself. Let it all end. I killed August. Biting her should be easy. I deserve this. She smells delicious, she tastes delicious. I remember the chunk I swallowed from her, how beautiful and rich and dense with power it was. Just bite. Bite. Go on, the hunter presses. I'm waiting. It's a free meal, monster. The horrible certainty in her smile brings tears to my eyes again. I won't, I can't, and she knows it. How? Why would anyone trust me? I don't trust me. She extracts the arm, dropping me back to the ground. Well, that settles that, Vita says smugly. I've killed people before, I hiss impotently. Me too, the hunter dismisses. So what? I have tortured them, I snarl. I've eaten them. Me too, the monster smiles. So what? I have nothing to say to that, so she reaches into another pocket and pulls out what appears to be a dead field mouse. She looks at it, something invisible around her moves, and suddenly I smell the creature with that sense of mind that knows food from fodder. Yet far unlike what I would expect from a mouse, it smells heavenly. I don't know what she's talking about, but before I can ask she holds the mouse out to me, dangling it with its tail pinched between two fingers. A true meal, made from a mouse. How? I salivate. It's just a rat, right? I could eat it. There can't be anything wrong with that. I don't deserve to eat it, but I could eat it, right? Before I know it, she's placed it in my hands. It waits, as if expecting and accepting its fate. It smells familiar. Eat up, she says softly. I have a friend that I think would be very mad at me if I didn't extend to you a bit of solidarity between monsters. She lost her life trying to find a way to get people like you to stop hurting others. If you don't want me to hurt others, I whisper, then you should kill me. Despite my words, I bring the mouse up to my mouth. Something inside me trembles, fearing it's too good to be true. Yet into my mouth it goes. I am missing many teeth, but my teeth are more for cutting and tearing than chewing anyway. I swallow the creature whole, and though I know that it lived, that it could move, it does not resist in the slightest as it is pushed down my throat into my void of a stomach. The usual tingling of regrowth tickles my ears and gums as a memory screams inside me. I know this flavor. What did you do? I whisper in horror. I let him choose, the vacant-eyed monster answers, entirely unsympathetic. He could be with me, or with you. Considering what I have to do to someone to even ask, he must have loved you quite a lot to make this choice. If he came with me I wasn't even going to eat him. I'm shaking, my breath too shallow to take in any meaningful amount of air. This is impossible. How? What? He had some last words for you, Vita continues, tone as flat as ever. Two things, really. The first is this: justice is not about punishment, it is about making things right. But we cannot make the past right. All we can affect is the present and the future. An evil person's greatest redemption is not in removing their evil from the world, but in replacing it with good. My only response is a wordless wail. Again, I don't understand. I don't understand anything. The second thing he wanted me to tell you, the monster intones, is that he forgives you. She stands up and starts to walk away. No, stop. I don't understand. What did she do to him? What did I just? Why? I sob at her. Why would? I just told you why, she answers. Besides, what was he going to do with half a soul if not complete yours? She makes it to the door and I stand up, turning to face her. What is wrong with you? I shriek at her. She looks back at me, actually focusing with her eyes before tossing a wooden owl mask at my feet. The same one I discarded in our fight. Have fun being human, Lark, she says. It will be night soon. Make your escape then, and don't get caught. If you still want to die, there's always the edge. She exits, closing and locking the door behind her, leaving me alone but for the screams inside my head. I expect the tears to start again, but, ever unpredictable, I find them dry. Numb. My mind is nothing but torment, but my body has given up, racked with an exhaustion beyond any other I have felt. I wish I could sleep, but I'm simply not capable. Each and every moment of this agony lodges itself in my memory forever, brutally slow hours passing until darkness envelopes the town. Then I get up. I don't know why. August wanted me to live, but what does that matter? I killed him, and then a monster made me do it again. There is no more August. He shouldn't matter anymore. So I tell myself as I find my feet padding silently through the darkness, mask on my face as I look for ways to leave the city unseen. He shouldn't matter anymore. No. He does, he will, and that is absolutely how it should be. This pain is what I deserve. No sleep, no forgetting, no death, no escape. Not from what matters. I was a fool to try. Though I suppose that Hunter had a point. There's always the edge. It always feels nice to do a good deed. I walk away from the storage shed with a spring in my step. I admit to being a bit leery to let Lark go, but I'll trust my instincts on the matter. Ultimately, isn't our job as hunters to protect people from monsters by any means necessary, not specifically by just killing them? That kid isn't going to bite another person. No way, know how. Frankly, she's more human than I am now. Maybe not physically, sure, but she is where it counts. That August guy, I was genuinely surprised to feel him die. Once Penelope finally healed me and I chased after Lark, I couldn't help but pause and wait a bit when I sensed their souls. August was not a fighter, not any sort of warrior, and yet he had one of the brightest souls I've ever felt. It reminded me so much of Lynn, his warmth and his love. It was obvious how much they cared about each other. When he died, I don't know, it just didn't feel right to pocket him like I do most souls. He deserved more than that. He deserved a conversation. Vita. Ah, speak of the teammate. Orville dashes into view, waving an arm at me. He feels a bit frazzled. Vita, please stop running off, he pants. It's not my fault you guys are all slow, I protest, holding up Lark's severed ear. Job's done. Surprise, confusion. Disappointment. Guilt. Orville's emotions are strange. Really? On your own. You should have at least let us back you up, Vita. What did you do with the rest of the body? I mean, I didn't raise it if that's what you're asking. What? No, I mean what happened to it? I killed it. I hedge. He sighs, rubbing at the bridge of his nose. Okay, never mind, I'm sure someone will find it. It's definitely dead. The monster is no more, I assure him. That thing won't hurt anyone ever again. All right, well, good I guess, he huffs, flicking his fingers a bit before firing a piercing whistle of a wind spell up into the sky. Our all-clear signal. You should have still waited for the rest of us. We're a team, aren't we? I mean, yeah, but you guys couldn't keep up, I point out. And I had it, so it's fine. A pause. He's nervous, worried, uncertain. My eye vaguely recognizes the motion of him sucking on the inside of his lip through my soul sight, his physical form mostly a silhouette. Penelope says you broke your own legs and nearly bled to death, Orville says slowly. I scoff. I wasn't going to bleed to death, I argue. When the bite happened, I wrapped the outside of my leg in tendrils. My blood is still part of me, so they held it all inside. Orville sighs. Penelope told me that you'd probably say something like that. And that if you did, I'm to inform you that you're a, quote, useless idiot that knows less about biology than she does about table manners. End quote. I blink. Huh. You do a pretty good Penelope impression, I admit. Thanks, I think. Anyway, you can still die of blood loss even if all of your blood is still inside your body. You had a severed artery. Apparently, whatever you were doing was just pooling all the blood like a giant bruise. You were still going to pass out eventually. Huh, I manage. I guess I'm not as clever as I thought. Speaking of, Orville continues, since you ran off again, you wouldn't happen to have any other injuries, would you? I shrug. Vita, look at me, Orville says firmly. I am looking at you, I insist, a bit confused. No, you aren't. You're looking at a rock or something, I don't know. Vita, are you okay? What is he? Oh, right. I lift my head and meet his physical eyes with my own. I take a deep breath, trying to focus. Right. Physical pain. I pick up and move my leg around a little, wincing as I feel bone scrape bone. Yeah, I might have cracked my legs a little maybe, I admit sheepishly. I'm still getting a handle on this, but I'm okay. I only got bit a few times, and only once anywhere important. Getting chomped on the tentacles hurt like hell, but those will regrow just fine. Only Lark's bite on my leg tore anything out of important parts of my soul, and I'm treating that wound already, breaking shards off of my usual spot and dusting them so my soul can recover the places that matter more quickly. My soul's power flows so thickly through my body now that the Vrothizo bite damaged me much more than it would a normal person, but it was still just one bite. I'll be fine. Orville, however, doesn't seem particularly mollified. He rushes over, holding his arms out like he's about to hug me. I step back. Betrayer. I could always count on Orville to be the least touchy member of the team. I used to be able to count on Penelope, but now she's hugging me too. I guess it's fine in her case, though. Mostly. I am carrying you back to Penelope, Orville insists, his tone brokering no argument. What? I argue anyway, I'm fine, I just said so. He gives me a weird look. Oh hey, I'm still looking at his face, though me and tries to figure out how to convince me. I scowl, an expression that I stick and keep firmly on my face as my teammate turns around and coaxes me into a piggyback ride. Indignantly, I climb on and he carries me halfway across the city. Penelope, Bentley, and Nora are all there, standing near a guard tower that we agreed upon as our rendezvous point. Ah, hey you two. Nora says, waving. You look cute together. Penelope's face scrunches together in irritation. I blink, not expecting to see Nora so cheerful. I thought she was still mad at me. I am way too heavily armed to be cute, I protest. Also, my legs are probably broken. Did you? Is she dead? Bentley asks hesitantly. Yeah, I got her. Took proof and some souvenirs, too. I wave the severed ear around, to Nora and Bentley's obvious discomfort. Stupid. Reckless. Foolish, Penelope chides angrily, approaching us. Orville, did she try to act like her injuries were no big deal? Yeah, I told her what you said, he grunts. Penelope nods, a bit of anger bubbling up in her. Worry, fear, something else I don't really want to think about. All right, put her down, I'll fix her again, she snaps. Orville does as instructed, squatting so he can plop my butt onto the ground. Penelope approaches as she usually does, pulling mana into her soul in order to start casting a spell, and then she slaps me in the face. I blink, stunned. Didn't see that coming, did you? Penelope sneers. Couldn't read my intent. Why would I expect someone worried about me to slap me? I grumble back. Is she already figuring out ways to fool me? No, that's a stupid question, of course she is. I scowl, tempted to smack her back, but I don't actually want to hurt her. Geez, this is a blast from the past. I figured we were done with the slapping. Still, she's probably got a point. Penelope lets out an indignant huff of air. The only person that gets to decide what you're supposed to be is you. A pause. And to a lesser extent me, since I own you. The rest of our team immediately gets uncomfortable, but I just roll my eyes. I scowl. Fine. I get your point, I grumble. You were much less naggy before you got a crush on me. At least Orville's never been weird about it. Silence. Then Nora wheezes like she suddenly can't breathe and I become surrounded by emotional chaos. Embarrassment, fury, despair, manic joy. Bentley stares with sad puppy dog eyes at Orville, who glances between Penelope and I in mounting horror as Penelope starts turning so red I'm worried her entire head will turn into a bruise. Fine. Penelope all but shrieks. Fine, I'm done. Go get yourself killed, tear your legs to shreds, I don't care. She gets up and starts walking away towards the forest. I think my legs are still broken. I call out to her. Then get someone to carry you. Penelope snaps back. It's just true, I grumble. I know, Nora laughs. It just really hits home how Vita you are. You know. You've been even more Vita than usual lately. I wrinkle my nose. You say that like it's a bad thing. No. Nora insists, starting to walk after Penelope. Just the way you think differently from other people, it feels like that's been getting more prominent. I don't know, it is what it is. There's bad parts maybe, but there's good parts too. Maybe I just don't want to put in as much effort to pretend to be something I'm not anymore, I answer, shrugging. Honestly, I haven't really noticed. It just feels natural to me. Nora nods slowly. I've been thinking about all that, you know, she says. About how Penelope thinks you're a human experiment. About I don't know, I guess all the stuff you just said about feeling trapped and wanting to be yourself and stuff. Some bastard shoved a talent in you that you never asked for. That's not fair, that's not your fault. Well, I think it might be a little more complicated than that, I say. My soul is all kinds of weird. But, are we still friends? Of course we are, Vida, Nora insists, and I know she means it. I don't think I can agree with everything I'm afraid you might be doing, but Bentley is right. You're not a bad person. You're our Vida. Please stop injuring yourself, though, Bentley chimes in. How long have you known? Orville mutters quietly at me. Known what? I ask him. How long have you known he's had a crush on you, Vida? Nora translates for me, suppressing another chuckle. Oh. I don't know, I shrug. Like a month I guess. It's okay Orville, I don't really care. Unfortunately that just makes him feel worse for some reason, and Nora starts hooting with laughter again. Bentley gives Orville a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. I look around at everyone with confusion. Sorry. I hedge. No, no. Nora chokes between howls of laughter. You're fine, Vida. Go ahead and let him down easy. And then she starts laughing harder. Well, I guess that's okay. It seems like we've made up, which is really good. I was worried. Nora is a really important friend. We've fought together, saved each other, and helped each other in a lot of places. I really don't want animancy to push the team apart. We start our journey back to Skyhope. It takes a day for Penelope to be willing to heal my legs, and another day for her to talk to anyone without biting their head off. Apparently, publicly announcing other people's crushes is a social no-no. I will do my best to remember that, I guess. Still, my body feels fresher and better, more my own. My team is being less weird about it, even asking me stuff about how my abilities work with genuine interest. They're talking to the revenants more, with even Nora treating them like people. I'm happy. The trip home is a good one. On the last night of our journey before returning to Skyhope, I wake up in horror to the feeling of Alan being shattered into innumerable pieces, his soul destroyed forever as Nora and Bentley stomp his bones to dust. I explode into motion, fueled by panic and terror. As is our habit, I sleep when most of the rest of the team is awake to ensure that while the longest-range scout is down, we are at our best versus potential ambushes. This time, I had been in a particularly deep and comfortable sleep thanks to Mateo curling around me like a loyal snake monster cocoon. I think I was even having a nice dream for once, though I don't really remember it. This all ends in an instant as Alan's soul becomes dust. Body raging and tentacles writhing, I leap over Mateo's flank and burst towards Nora and Bentley, furious scream ripping itself from my throat. Bentley staggers backwards but catches me without falling, grabbing my comparatively tiny wrists and struggling to fight my soul-enhanced strength. Snarling, I wrap tendrils around his core, causing him to immediately drop me in terror. Should I do it? Do I kill him? No, what am I thinking? It's Bentley. I can't, but why would they do this? How could they do this? Vida. Nora shouts, Vida, stop. He told us to. Look, I'll show you. Hello to you too, Nora. I am all right, all things considered. Yourself? Strange, but not as bad as you'd think. I do, yes. Just a nice, normal conversation. Alan can't talk but he can write. There's no one writing back. Nora and Bentley were presumably speaking aloud and waiting politely for the words to be scratched into the dirt. The conversation continues, neat and orderly. It doesn't take long until it's about me. Miss Vida is an odd sort, but a good sort. In general. Well, animancy is illegal of course. I don't think there's any need to worry about Miss Vida. My good, loyal revenants. I know I shouldn't think like that, I know that forcing loyalty on someone is messed up. But I also know that I love it. It's just what I am, I suppose. They are comfortable, they are safe. They are so much easier than normal people. I'm not sure. It just feels wrong to not use a title, I suppose. Nora must have asked about the name. Miss Vida. Honestly, I don't even know why so many of them like calling me that. She saved my life. Should I not be grateful? Of course you should. You're welcome. I suppose that isn't untrue. Why would she be messing with my head? Not on purpose. I just want to live. I know the Watcher waits for me, but when I look at her I just want. Cut off, huh? Didn't even let him finish. You might be right. You're right. How did I not? I love her so much. I'm an abomination. You have to destroy me. No. When she wakes up I'll see her face and... Yes. I mean it. Send me to the Watcher. The others too. Free us. Pangs of hostility behind me caused me to tear my gaze off of Nora, rotating my inner eye completely around to stare at Matteo and Netta. The latter has knocked and drawn her bow, face furious as she aims at Nora. Matteo coils towards Bentley, power gathering in his soul as his massive body slithers forward, shaking with grief. A split second later, Orville draws his bow as well, aiming towards Matteo. Penelope, who has been napping even though she's not technically supposed to, rouses quickly, blinking twice at the scene and scowling with the sort of bland irritation she might have at an overcooked meal. What did I miss? She grumbles. Two of yours killed one of ours, Netta growls, air magic already starting to swirl around her arrow. We'll see how they like it, Matteo hisses. Netta, hey, don't. Orville begs, swallowing nervously. Don't make me fight you. You're being mind-controlled. Nora shouts, drawing and raising her shield. Can't you see that? He asked us to, Bentley whines. He was in so much pain. He was shaking. I just thought. Everyone shut up and stand down. I shout. Matteo halts immediately, but Netta twitches, fighting to keep her bow drawn. Down, Netta, I snap again, and with a shudder she releases the tension in her body, pointing her weapon back down to the ground. Do you see what I mean? Nora hisses, gesturing to me. So you knew that your power mind controls people and you just didn't tell us? Nora asks. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Damn it, I thought it was a good thing that Nora was finally starting to talk with the Revenants and treat them like people, but it was just giving her the chance to figure out how weird being a Revenant makes them. I thought it would be unfair to trap them inside me rather than let them walk around since we're in the forest anyway and everybody knows about them. Why do I keep getting my ass bitten off whenever I try to do something nice? I'm sorry, Bentley squeaks, somehow seeming so tiny despite his massive frame. Alan was just so scared and Nora was freaking out and Alan begged us to. So correct me if I'm mistaken here, Penelope chimes in, stretching and adjusting her armor as she stands, but you're saying that someone requested an assisted suicide, someone who hadn't wanted to die mere minutes beforehand, someone that you definitively identified as being mentally compromised, and you said yes? Bentley tries to shrink even further. Oh, shove it 5 feet up your ass. Netta barks. I'm missing an eye and I can see that's bullshit. Of course I know that, I'm not an idiot, Netta spits back, and she probably would have spat more literally if she was still capable. I just don't see why that means you get to stomp my teammates' bones into powder like a Watcherdam barbarian. There are reasons for what we do, for the laws we have and the policies we follow. Hunters destroy the undead because the souls are tortured and violent, a danger to everyone. Do I look tortured or violent to you? You just aimed a bow my head. We're all drowning in shit now, and I don't know how to swim. Part of me just wants to rip the souls out of Nora and Bentley and call it even, but I push that part down and bottle it up. What went wrong here? How can I make it right? I don't understand enough about people to know what Nora wants from me, but I have to try something. Nora, if you had talked to me about this we could have worked something out, I try. Then why didn't you say anything, she counters. Well, I was afraid you'd freak out. I defend honestly. Which you did. I don't have mind control powers. I insist. That's cognomancy, and I can't do that. It's just that when I bring someone back from the dead, I have to take out a bit of my own soul and put it in them to make them work, so. You've been mutilating your own soul. Nora yelps. Vita, we need to get you in to see someone that can help you. You will do no such thing, Matteo warns, slithering closer. Vita has made herself clear on the matter. Sicking the monster you made out of a human on me is not going to change my opinion on how badly you need help, Nora growls, activating her talent in anticipation of an attack. I am not sicking anyone. I insist. And don't call him a monster. My revenants are just instinctively loyal, okay? It's not on purpose. I'm trying to figure out how to fix it. You should just be letting the Watcher fix it. Nora snaps at me. What, like you? You didn't leave anything for the Mist Watcher to collect. I saved his soul, but you shattered it. You can't just smack someone hard enough that they don't go to the afterlife, Vita. I narrow my eyes, lips twisting into a snarl. She really thinks she knows better than me here, huh? Vita, Nora breathes, don't make me. Don't make you what? I stare her down for a few moments, remembering to use the eyes in my head to make sure she knows it. Then I walk right past her, pull a shard from my body, and stick it into a nearby tree. The web of veins extruded from my shard twist up into each and every branch and down through the deepest root. Bodies are just objects, I tell her, projecting my voice so everyone can hear. They're special only in that when a soul is inside one, the Mist Watcher doesn't reach up to eat it. But I can technically make a zombie out of anything, as long as it isn't already alive in the way that matters. Bend towards me, Dreg. Zombies don't use eyes to see, they don't use ears to hear, they don't use noses to smell, and they don't use muscles to move. A tree can't normally move itself, but as you can see this one moves anyway because I gave it a soul, and the structure of that soul is shaped to snake through it, anchor to it, meld with it and become tangible to it and only it. The soul moves the vessel. But the vessel also moves the soul. Snap, I say. Oops, this part of the soul is broken now. Disconnected. Gone. Most souls can recover from that. Living souls aren't damaged when the body is damaged because they don't act like this, at least not usually. But in the undead, the soul is tied to each and every bit. So when you smash too much of it. I glance up at the tree. Bend, I order again. My revenants flinch, both of them twisting their bodies a little to fulfill the letter of the order, but the dreg I made from this tree has no such intelligence. The branches creak as they twist, and soon they start to break. Snapping and shattering, one by one at first, but soon they start to clatter like a waterfall to the forest floor in a horrible cacophony of death. A second of this passes until finally the tension is too much and the strength of the remaining soul is too little. My shard shatters, the tree jerking suddenly back into its prior position, while over half its limbs splintered on the ground. A small price to pay to make my point heard. No one speaks. No one even moves. I glower at everyone, Penelope having taken particular interest in my rant while the others just seem shocked and mildly mortified. I let the silence stretch, having already said everything I intend to. Fine, we'll do things your way, Nora manages quietly. I'm sorry. We just did what he asked us to do, what we thought was right. Yeah. She glances over to Bentley with that, who nods in agreement despite his obvious horror at the entire situation. He asked us to free the others too, Nora says slowly, but I guess you're right that it's not his call. I'll back off. You expect us to just let you get away with it? Mateo growls. He was my best friend. Nora glances at me and I scoff with disgust. Now she wants me to save her with mind control. As Netta and Mateo tense for combat, however, Orville, Nora, and a hesitant Bentley do the same. I'm tempted to just let them all fight it out. It's not like my revenants would lose and the whole thing would officially become not my problem. However, as I glance around I notice behind me that Penelope shakes her head, ever so subtly. Her soul is insisting that no, fighting here would be a terrible idea. I suck on the inside of my lip and think for a second. Yeah, it's not exactly a great look if Penelope and I come back as the only survivors. Could the Templars use that as an excuse to pound through the wall of bureaucracy Penelope and her fiancé set up and start officially investigating me? It's probably not worth the risk. Sorry Mateo, Netta, but I do expect you to let her get away with it. Or at least keep her alive. On the condition, of course, that she agrees to not tell anyone when we get back to Skyhope. Why would I not be serious? If you go and blab to the church about me, I die. It seems like a pretty serious situation to me. I can confirm that, Penelope agrees blandly. After we were nearly killed by the Mistwatcher, the High Templar blamed Vita for causing it and would have executed her on the spot if I hadn't intervened. Well, we don't have to go to Galdraval. After only a few seconds, Orville shakes his head no and relaxes his body. I figured he would fall in my camp, considering how much he cares for Netta. Bentley caves soon after, completely crumpling under the social pressure. I'm confident he'll keep the secret. I of course already know where Penelope stands, I just didn't want to single her out via exclusion. After nearly half a minute, Nora agrees to not tell anyone as well. We pack up and we start the last leg of the journey back to Skyhope. The only problem being that Nora was lying. An hour later, I ask her again if she plans to tell anyone. She says no, still lying. Half an hour after that, I ask again. Lying. When we're almost to the edge of the forest I ask her one final time. Because I can see your soul, Nora, I sigh. I told you guys that already. I can tell when you don't believe what you say. Vita, come on, don't give me that shit. I won't sell you out or betray you or whatever you're afraid of. I step in front of her, halting our progress through the forest. Nora, this is a matter of life and death for me. You know that. I need you to give me an honest answer. I did, Nora snaps. Vita, I'm serious. I feel you making justifications, I growl. You writhe and twist, you feel hard and hollow. You're lying. Vita, she starts. Give me an honest answer or I will kill you, I tell her frankly. Silence. Everyone turns to stare at me. Shock, grim resignation, fear agreement from Penelope, which is reassuring. Still, I don't want to do this. The last thing I want is to do this. But I will not sit back and let her get me killed, even if it means getting her first. I cannot die. Not when I'm the only hope for Penta, for Angelion, for Lynn, for Rowan, for all the kids, for every human I've picked up and stored inside me. I will not let their souls get crushed to dust by the monster that waits below. So I will not, must not die. What do you expect me to say? Nora asks me, stepping back. I step forward, tendrils coiled and ready. Tell me the truth. Change your mind before you say no again, or tell me the honest yes and let me convince you otherwise. You just want me to stand here and wait for you to convince me that animancy is okay, she asks incredulously. Yes, I say simply. I don't want to kill you, Nora, but I will not let you kill me. Hey, isn't this a little extreme? Orville hedges. She's making it about me or her, I snap. What do you expect me to do, fall over and wait to get skewered by Templars? She could be telling the truth, Bentley stammers. What if you're wrong? I'm not wrong, I answer through clenched teeth. I am very, very tired of having to explain that I'm not wrong. Vida, Nora pleads, reaching a hand out towards my shoulder, I promise you, The moment she touches me her talent activates, solidifying and hardening every joint in my armor. My whole body freezes like a statue as she kneels, bringing my body to the ground. I'm well aware that no amount of straining will allow my limbs to move the hardened shell she has created around me, even with my enhanced strength. As I'm laid carefully on my back, my revenants burst into action immediately. Yet they're too close to her. She activates her hardening talent on their bodies, something not possible for her with living flesh but apparently easy enough to use on two dead revenants at once. Her talent is strained to the absolute limit, but even the massive Mateo falls. Bentley. Nora orders. Pull them closer so I can touch them, or I won't be able to keep this up. We're going to get Vida to someone that can help and keep her safe. Okay. No one has to. What did you expect this to accomplish? I ask, and rip out her soul. Silence falls along with her body as I stand back up, cracking my neck. I nestle her inside me, carefully inserting her in that special place right next to Angelion and Penta. Nora had been my friend, one of the few I have ever had. What? I snap at my team, refusing to cry. I warned her. What did you just do? Bentley stands shaking, so overwhelmed by confusion and terror that he denies the obvious reality I made sure to keep explicitly clear. Nora's corpse lies face down in the grass and dirt of the forest, collapsed like a doll after I cut her strings. The inflexibility of her armor forces her into an awkwardly slumped-over position, her knee caught under her belly and her arms splayed at an awkward angle that keeps her chest up off the ground. Only after a slight nudge from my boot does she finish her collapse. I killed her, I say clearly. Orville looks away. There's a slight spasm in Bentley's body as he suppresses an urge to vomit. She was our friend, Bentley whispers. Yes, I agree. She was. But she was going to get me and lots of people I care about killed. She wouldn't listen. Orville starts, his breath catching. It's so sudden. Just like that and she's gone. Sudden. I warned her. She just didn't listen to that either. Wasn't there some other way? Orville presses. I scowl at him. I tried using words. I'm not good at words, you both know that. But I mean what I say. She was going to get me killed. It was her or me if she kept pushing. I told her. I told all of you. And none of the rest of you said or did a damn thing. That shuts them up. Fine. All I need from them is to shut up. So now I have to ask again, I growl. Is anyone else going to make the same mistake? I'm going to start getting used to being stared at this rate. Orville takes a few moments, staring at what was once Nora, before slowly shaking his head. Before, he just didn't think I was in the wrong. Now there's a bit of fear mixed in, but he's smart. I don't think he'll betray me. Bentley, unfortunately, is not smart, but at this point he's broken. I watch in real time as his mind starts to unravel and snap at the seams. It's not as dramatic as it sounds, just the tearing apart of a fundamentally good person who until now saw everyone else the same way. Someone who genuinely believed that there would always be a way to resolve our conflicts. Someone who thought his axe would only ever be for big, scary monsters that thump around in forests and nightmares. Frankly, I'm not opposed to disabusing him of that ridiculous notion. So long as he doesn't seem willing to raise that axe to me, I don't care. And as I stare at him, I know there isn't a chance he'd risk losing another one of us to this. That would be too far. The puppy is still loyal. Good, I say, nodding. Next item on the agenda would be the body, then. I have an idea, but it involves Matteo and I don't want to accidentally force him into agreeing. I glance at Penelope, then indicate Nora's corpse with my head, hoping she has a similar train of thought. She smiles. Matteo, I realize this is somewhat distasteful, but would you be so kind as to take a bite out of Nora for us, she asks. Good old Penelope. I can always count on her. I mean, that's super brutal and not what I was going to say at all, but it works. Matteo squirms uncomfortably, which is honestly pretty cute to watch on a 20-foot-long murder serpent. I see the logic, but distasteful does not begin to cover it, he rumbles. It would not be a proper Hunter SSS burial. We should strip the armor, Netta says. And then we should poison the body and use it as bait. A good hunter protects the city even in death. I look around, seeing a lot of nods of assent. A hunter's death. People who die in the city tend to be burned, but a hunter's body, already out in the forest, can be used for more. It's tempting to keep Nora's body. Perhaps much later, when I no longer have to worry about her, I can put her back in it. But there's just no way to justify dragging the body back and bringing it with the others. How are we to make the case that Nora died to a monster when we have her corpse, completely intact, brought back with us to the city? We'll probably have to throw away a fair chunk of her armor for the same reason. Well, we could get Matteo to munch that probably. A lot less distasteful to smash the armor than it is to bite a human body, I suppose. I personally don't see the fuss, but I have to agree using the corpse as bait is a better idea anyway. Before we get too far into this, I was actually going to ask if you want Nora's body, Matteo, I say. He has been getting a lot more comfortable as a big spooky monster these past few days, but I figure I should still ask if he prefers a humanoid form. Everybody just gives me a really weird look though, including Matteo. I guess that's a no. I hedge. I would be less than comfortable in the body of a teenage girl, Matteo says slowly. And I suspect no one else would be comfortable with that either. For many reasons, Netta agrees, disapproval radiating at me from all sides. Okay, geez, I was just asking, I grumble defensively. It's not like she's gonna be using it. Bentley starts to cry, and I take that as my cue to shut up. Humans are weird. I wait for Penelope to finish casting before addressing the next item we have to take care of before finally heading home from this bullshit journey. Matteo, Netta, what do you guys want to do? I can keep your souls safe until we find somewhere safe you can live, you can hang out in the forest if you want, or you could die, I guess. Forest, Netta answers immediately, and Matteo nods his agreement. Didn't I just say? A good hunter protects the city even in death. I nod. Good on them. Okay. You can't last forever like this, you will eventually degrade. We'll have to meet up every once in a while so I can feed you and keep you on your feet. You might be able to recharge by killing other undead, though, if you find any. Basically, smash them and you can take their soul dust. Otherwise, I can give you more of my soul to feed you. Don't worry, it doesn't really hurt me. They nod. You're of course free to come with me if you want, Orville, I tell him. Instead of visiting my family all the time, we can visit yours. He sighs, glancing between people, corpses, and those who are both. Not quite how I imagined it would go, Orville mutters to himself. I never had much use for all the money the Hunters Guild kept throwing at me, Netta grunts, but legally it's all yours now, Orville. My will is at the guild and it says you are your own man. He frowns. I'll make sure it doesn't, Penelope dismisses. There's no one better at abusing bureaucracy than my fiancé. You'll find the proper paperwork in your hands, Orville. One way or another. He nods a thank you and we finally depart for home, Bentley remaining silent for the rest of the trip. I wave goodbye to Netta and Matteo, and before long the walls of Skyhope are in sight. Many of the guards watch me nervously as we wait at the gate, Penelope grumbling about the inadequacies of the biomancer checking us for parasites. I grin at one of the gate workers giving me a worried look to try and put them at ease, but he jumps a little and quickly looks away. I guess that backfired. Oh well. We trudge through the streets of the city, returning to the guild and letting Orville give the report to our grim-faced branch leader. The loss of Netta, Alan, and Mateo is a heavy blow to the already struggling guild. I mostly don't bother to pay attention, a bit on edge from being watched by so many of my fellow scouts in the building. I know I feel dangerous and all, but this is getting ridiculous. When Orville is done and the branch leader grimly instructs us to stand by, Bentley finally speaks up. I would like to resign, sir, he stammers. The branch leader seems entirely unsurprised, too exhausted to put up an argument even with our lack of staffing. He's not the kind of man to beg someone to go die for him if they didn't volunteer. I've always liked our branch leader, frankly. He's a good man, trying his best to keep our city together in the places he can. Bentley's request is agreed to immediately, and our former teammate walks out, leaving Orville, Penelope, and I without anyone to act as a frontline. Well, I suppose I could do it, but I'm happy to not get sent on missions for a while. That one was rough. So Bentley leaves. Penelope begrudgingly makes her way to the infirmary, where I can feel Claretta currently managing things. Fulvia is nowhere within my range. Orville heads to his room, and I to mine, quickly stripping out of my armor before digging Roscoe out from under my pillow. I sit down on my bed, squeezing my stuffed bird as hard as I can, tentacles poking and prodding the inert souls inside my body. I don't feel like myself. The starving, tiny girl who panicked and tried to give the soul back to a man who nearly beat me to death is a distant, embarrassing memory. Nora's bed taunts me from across the room, thoughts of what I could have said to just make her listen dancing in the back of my mind, arguments replaying over and over. Nora. Huge, beautiful, reliable Nora. She was my friend. She was my teammate. She was my lifeline. A good person, through and through. But she just didn't believe me where it counted. She couldn't take the one step I needed her to take to stay friends. And now she's dead. I should feel sad, but I'm mostly just angry. Furious at her stubbornness and her stupidity, her inability to just trust me with my own life and the seriousness of the things I do. I suppose in some ways I can hardly blame her for not believing I know what I'm doing. So often, I really don't. Things just feel so out of hand, so out of my control. I keep trying to make the best choices I can, do the right thing as often as possible, and everything keeps blowing up in my face. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know how to be the Vita that grabs the reins of her own life that I want to be. It just feels like every step ends in disaster. At some point, I'm curled up on top of the bed, head on my pillow. At some point, I'm crying again. I hate this all so much. I hate my life, I hate my body, I hate this city, and I hate everything and everyone who keeps getting in my way. I wish I could just be free, take some time to think, let everything slow down so I can figure out what I even am before deciding on all the things I need to do. But life just doesn't want to wait for me. I fall asleep, my pathetic body exhausted after days of fighting and travel with minimal rest. When I finally wake up, the darkness of an island above blackening my room, it's not to an emergency. It's just to the realization that for the last day and a half I seem to have forgotten to pee. I extract myself from bed with an uncomfortable grumble, my sole sight unbothered by the lack of light as I make my way through the building and to the bathroom outside. I must spend at least half an hour there between exhaustion and constipation. I try to focus, trying to do what Penelope demanded I do and pay attention to my body. I can't just ignore this disgusting bag of flesh and organs that I regretfully require to house my true self. It used to be so much easier, even a month ago, but now it feels like trying to scrape myself raw. It can't ever truly be the same, not with the veins of energy extruding from my core and wrapping through each and every nook and cranny in the meat sack other people see as me. In some ways I seem stuck between either feeling too little of my body or feeling far, far too much. My soul wraps around my heart, feeling it beat. It twists within my stomach, the sloshing acid inside far more apparent to me now than could possibly be helpful. The kinds of things my mundane senses are explicitly designed to ignore are all too apparent to the new senses in my soul. And yet, the information that's actually helpful, the things my body needs to know in order to ensure that I function correctly, like pain and hunger and dizziness and bloat, these things do not have an equivalent soul sense. It's not that I'm avoiding paying attention to what my body tells me, it's that I seem to be forgetting how. I don't want to admit that, but I am. Like Nora said, I'm just getting more Vita-like. I don't know what that means, but I hope it hurries up. The euphoria I got from achieving this stage of my metamorphosis wore off days ago. Only the displeasure is left, the irritation of not knowing what I'm supposed to be but knowing without a doubt that this isn't it. I let air out of my lungs, and perhaps against my better judgment I delve back into the deep blue abyss of my soul. If I forget to breathe and start suffocating to death, hopefully falling into the toilet will wake me up. I pull at the mana, filling the spiritual veins and capillaries snaking through me as I trace their path backwards to the ocean of my true self. The channel is still too thin, too far. But for a single short minute, I can bask in the one part of myself that doesn't feel hideous and wrong. My meat falls forward, and with a gasp of breath I return to the grim immediacy of the bathroom. Finishing my business, I stand up and prepare to depart, a scowl on my face. Something powerful, dangerous, and very annoying has approached me in the time I was too distracted to notice, although I don't sense ill intentions from him, so perhaps that's why I didn't bother to acknowledge it. I open the bathroom door, willing myself to maintain focus on my body. Do you often stalk young women using the restroom? I ask, staring up at the sky. Or just at sky, rather. Please excuse my terrible timing, the mob boss answers, floating in the air a solid 10 feet above the rooftops. We both seem to have quite busy schedules, and it has been so difficult arranging a conversation with you. His soul just radiates ego. In some ways it's an invigorating sort of feeling, an arrogance built on a powerful enough backing to be almost attractive. Put a big, big emphasis on that almost, though. Even the stupid meat part of me that occasionally, annoyingly cares about such things finds little to appreciate in his almost comically feminine frame. He's floating at an angle that lets the coming light of dawn silhouette his body, I think for dramatic effect. Yet all it does is make me realize that he has fuller hips than I do. Not that it's much of a contest, but still. That's too bad, I say. Good night. Day arrives too soon, light oozing in through the windows and frustrating my body enough to force it awake. I lie motionlessly in bed for quite some time after, however, not paying attention to my soul sense or meditating or cycling mana or thinking or planning or anything at all. I just stay still, holding Roscoe and wishing that I was still unconscious. I haven't done this sort of thing in a long time. Back when I was starving, back when I was alone on the street with nothing to look forward to, some days were like this. Days when I lacked the energy to even beg for food, mustering only enough attention to pray for the ground to open and drop me to my demise. It was Lynn who ultimately chased those days away, who gave me something to live for and eventually kept me alive long enough for my true self to awaken, a moment which has dictated the entirety of my life since. I suppose I should get up and go see her, now that I'm back. No doubt she's worried sick. Half an hour later, I manage to rise to my feet and start strapping on my armor. No one pilfered it in the night to get it cleaned. That was probably something Nora used to do. I don't personally care if my armor is covered in blood or not. If anything, having viscera all over me is probably a good deterrent against getting mugged. In the rare cases the armor and weapon alone aren't enough. You have to be 10 kinds of stupid or desperate to draw a knife on someone already splattered with death and expect anything to work out for you. Of course, all of the blood on my armor is either from that giant flying Grothizo, from my own team, or mostly from me. Everything else I just killed with a soul pull or avoided. There's still a huge hole in the armor, on the back of the left knee, where Lark bit me. I wonder how she's doing. Probably terrible. But what do I know? I've had 3 conversations with her and 2 of them ended with fights to the death. I spend another 5 minutes staring at Nora's bed before grabbing my spear and exiting my room. I feel Penelope in the medical ward and wow. Sky is still here. Has he just been waiting this whole time? I thought he said he was busy. Actually, it's more likely that he left and just came back before I actually started moving. I suppose I should go talk to him. Instead of doing that, I head to the medical ward. Penelope seems exhausted, and I should drag her with me to get some breakfast so she doesn't forget to eat. If there's one aspect of my stupid meat sack that I don't have to worry about forgetting, it's eating. The need to consume food is drilled so thoroughly into me after a decade and a half of starvation that I don't need to feel hunger to know when it is time to eat. Which is to say, it's always time to eat. Good morning, Vita, Penelope sighs, and I remember to glance up and actually take in how she looks. I would describe her as haggard, insofar as anyone who puts as much effort into their appearance as Penelope can be. Her normally done-up hair is slowly coming apart, ever so slightly frazzled. She moves with exhausted purpose, pushing herself hard. She's not looking at me as she says hello, busy casting spells on a man with a missing leg. In other words, I find her doing all the things that I've been told not to do. I let myself smile a little at that. Breakfast time, Penelope, I tell her. Since when do you fetch other people for breakfast, she asks. Doesn't it cut into your valuable eating time? You told me to pay more attention to the physical, I say. That includes you. A very small, slight blush stains her cheeks, accompanied by a surge of attraction in her soul. My immediate emotional response to this is revulsion. I shouldn't have asked, I should have just known, that's me falling into a bad habit again. Why do I feel like this? So is that why I find these feelings from Penelope so offensive? I don't think so. This feels separate, and I don't know why. If anything, this takes my already loyal best friend and makes her even more reliably on my side. It's like the way that revenants feel about me. Except I can't order her around or know that she'll forgive anything. She is still her own person, so rather than reducing the degree to which I need to worry about her, it does the opposite. It's an obligation, not a boon. Something I have to manage, something that alters our relationship in a way that I don't know how to and don't want to handle. She wants things now that I very vividly do not want, and I have no idea how my arrogant noble friend might handle rejection. But surely she's insightful enough to recognize that I might feel this way. I don't know. Penelope is very, very important to me. I might even love her. But I do so like I love Lynn, not like how Lynn loves Rowan. I respect Penelope, I owe Penelope, and if anyone hurts Penelope I will deliver unto their soul the most malicious torture I can conceive before ripping it asunder. But I don't really want to date Penelope. Or at least, I don't think so. That's how it feels, but in truth I have no idea why that is a distinction that matters to me, or even what that distinction means. Well, Penelope manages after a brief pause. I have been working all night, so I suppose it would be acceptable to take a break to eat. I'll take over, then. Cloretta has been lying in one of the patient beds, but at her words she grabs a cane off the floor and carefully, shakily stands up. Penelope scowls at her. You're supposed to be sleeping, she chides. Tried, Cloretta grunts. Didn't work out. Go eat. Penelope opens her mouth to protest before glancing at me, another flash of desire changing her mind. I don't like that either. Penelope is supposed to be the logical one, the smart one, the one I can always rely on to have done the thinking on anything she says or does. Perhaps I'm being overdramatic, though. She's still Penelope, of course she's still smart. We head to the cafeteria together, Penelope clearing her throat to speak as I shovel stew into the biggest bowl I can get my hands on. "So how are you holding up?" she asks. "Fine," I answer. "I haven't had any problems since you healed me." "Not physically, Vita," she clarifies. "We lost a lot of people on that mission. How are you holding up?" I frown, wrapping Nora's soul in a tentacle and rotating it idly in my grasp. "People die," I remind her simply. Penelope raises an eyebrow, somehow managing to look dainty and proper as she hastily inhales breakfast. "That's an interesting coping phrase you've got there," she comments between bites. I glower at her but don't respond, using the stew as an excuse to keep my mouth shut. Coping phrase. It's just true. "Well, take heart I suppose," Penelope mutters after another couple bites. "You did everything you had to. We made the best choices we could." I believe that. So I think it's a good sign that we both feel like shit anyway. I exert the effort to glance at her. She glances back, giving me a shrug and a half-hearted smirk. "Woo," I say flatly. "Not psychopaths." "Not psychopaths," she sighs, lifting her cup of water in a toast. I tap my cup to hers and we drink, trying to wash down the guilt with water. It is predictably ineffective. I suppose I can afford to buy beer now, but it seems like a waste. I'm not sure how getting drunk would affect me, if even at all. I'm tempted to ask, just to see if Penelope wants to try out an experiment or two on the matter. It might be a fun distraction. "Want to meet a mob boss with me?" I ask instead. "Sure," she shrugs again. "May as well." I eat 2 more bowls of stew in the time it takes for Penelope to finish her one, and we depart together. Penelope is apparently quite shaken by yesterday's events, as she doesn't even change out of the messy armor that she's been wearing since we left on the mission in the first place. I don't think I've ever seen her so lacking in composure. We exit the guild and I immediately track each soul that turns to pay attention to me. Sky has flown away during the time it took for Penelope and I to eat, but he hasn't left the guild unwatched. As one man turns down an alley with the intention of reporting my departure, I burst forward, crossing the crowded street in a moment and appearing in front of the now startled member of the Drakens. "Where's Sky?" I ask him, keeping most of my attention on the streets and alleyways. The sudden movement has attracted a lot of attention, but nearly all of it is irrelevant so I ignore it. I am supposed to go get him so he can come to you," the man stammers, his vomit chartreuse soul quivering. "Fine by me. Is there somewhere in particular he wanted to meet?" After a brief conversation, he scurries off and Penelope rushes over to heal the tendons I apparently just pulled. "At least you didn't crack your bones again," she grumbles. "I'm going to add bone density adjustments to the modifications I've been making on you. Which is of course not to say that you don't need to learn how to use your strength properly. I'm not always going to be by your side, Vita, I have things to do." "Yeah, sorry," I mumble. I tried to be careful but I mostly just moved on instinct there. "The strength of your soul is far outstripping the strength of your body," Penelope chides. "You can't be using anywhere close to your full strength like this. Your body should naturally grow to try and compensate, and I'll help it along for you, but it's a slow process." "How slow?" She shakes her head. "Most people could never dream of growing their soul as quickly as you do, so I haven't the faintest idea. Even if we had records of other people with similar growth rates, considering how quickly your eyes changed and are still changing, it's likely you run on entirely different rules anyway." "Oh yeah, what's up with my eyes?" I ask. "Are they still changing?" "Yes, every day," Penelope confirms. "More today than usual. Your iris is growing outward into your sclera, while your pupil continues to elongate. It will likely be a problem for you in the near future." "Wait, what?" I ask, not understanding what any of that meant. "Am I going to go blind or something?" No, the problem will be exclusively social. Your eyes should work fine, they just won't look human anymore, Penelope says. You'll likely have clearer night vision due to increased maximum pupil size, perhaps you'll experience some alterations to how you interpret color, etc. The problem is that it's just going to be very obvious in the near future, and since our cover story is that I'm doing it to you, it will be a pain to keep up that pretense when I don't actually have any idea how to make someone's eyes look like that. Well, let me know if you want to operate on mine or something, I offer, shrugging. She nods, managing a genuine smile. I'll likely take you up on that, she agrees. After healing me, Penelope and I make our way to the spot we were told to wait for Sky. A small barely courtyard-like area nestled out of sight between buildings, the kind of place where legal activity just doesn't tend to occur. We are alone when we first arrive, but it takes little time before Sky simply appears above us, blinking into my senses as he is presumably teleported by Capita. I look up physically, leading Penelope to follow my gaze and spot him. Huh, she tuts. That's quite the powerful young woman, if she can fly already. Is that one of the criminals? Penelope, that's Sky, I tell her. He's a man. She raises an eyebrow at me. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, I tell her as he floats down to speak with us. He just looks like a woman. Ah yes, Sky sneers, hands in his pockets as he glowers down from above. My favorite conversation. And you're having it with a noble woman, one of my favorite sorts of people. You really do like to make a game out of pissing me off, don't you, Vida? No, not really, I say honestly. I assure you, it just comes naturally to her, Penelope confirms. No, I correct, I definitely invited her. Believe it or not, you're just not a man I trust very much, Sky. He smirks at that, floating over to one of the buildings and sitting down on the lip of the roof, legs crossed and dangling. Penelope frowns, feeling as though she's solved some sort of puzzle and doesn't like the solution. I, meanwhile, am just confused and have no idea what this guy is talking about. Well, thankfully for her, you're not me, Sky counters, flashing a roguish grin. But enough pleasantries, let's get down to business, shall we? You've been rudely declining my invitations for quite some time, but we're both from the streets. A certain amount of rudeness must necessarily be excused in a world where power rules all. If this is the part where you try to convince her to join your organization again, I'm afraid she's already mine, Penelope butts in coldly. He snaps his fingers, and a split second later a man appears in the air next to him. Bound, gagged, and heavily bruised, he immediately falls to ground level. Neither Penelope nor I move to catch him, and he impacts the ground with a dull thud, whimpering in pain. I spend a moment rooting through the man's soul for telltale guilt, and find enough nestled behind pain and fear that I'm willing to believe this is indeed the person he's claimed to be. That's a start, I concede. But it doesn't bring Angelian back. Nor does it negate the starvation we suffered or the abuse Lynn endured. You paid us in protection and threats, not food or money, so every shred of justification you had for our pain is dust. Sky shrugs, his face hard, but not entirely unsympathetic. If I had enough food and money for everyone, I wouldn't very well need to do this, would I? We have nothing in our part of town, Vida. There is nothing to go around. And it is all being used, Sky insists. I assure you, I'm not sitting on mountains of decadence. The casino leeches money from the undeserving. I built it to be a parasite, a poison. If I want to take money from the rich, I have to look rich. They would never deign to be seen anywhere lesser. Yet here I am, Penelope counters, indicating our less than opulent surroundings. There is certainly a degree of shallowness prevalent within the nobility, I will grant you that. But you're not doing anything to fix it, are you? You're just trying to exploit more than you can be exploited, and that is not a game you will be able to win. Sky glances at me. Vida, if you don't shut your damn pet noble's mouth, I'm afraid I might lose my temper. That's an awfully casual threat from a man so careful to stay out of my kill range, I answer, smiling mockingly back at him. He glares down his nose at me, lifting himself up from his sitting position and slowly starting to float down. I thought he was going to stand on the roof, but where his feet would have otherwise made contact, the stone building is instead ripped apart. He continues to descend not in front of the building but through it, shards of stone tearing up in a thin oval around him, caught as if in a cyclone. Jagged pebbles whirl around him fast enough to be nothing but a blur, more and more joining the chaotic vortex as he continues to carve the building wall in half. By the time he gets to the ground, his body is surrounded by a shield of debris moving at such a high speed it's barely visible, but there's no doubt in my mind that if I stuck a hand in there I'd pull out a ragged stump. Then he points a hand towards me. I see the faintest flicker of movement, a crack of sound, and then blood starts dripping from what was once my earlobe. The powerful get to be rude, Sky says evenly, because no one can stop them. It's a habit people like you form. Do not mistake my tolerance for it as a lack of capacity to end it. I nod slowly, blood dripping down on my shoulder. That was fast. Faster than Remus by quite a margin. Even as I am now, I can't dodge something like that. I suppose I let myself forget that he rules a big part of the city's criminal underworld for a reason. Penelope calmly steps over to me and starts healing my ear, looking thoroughly bored with the entire situation. Sky immediately aims at her face, intending to make his point lethally clear. Let her bleed, he orders. Penelope flashes a smile that stops him short, ignoring the command. Go ahead and shoot, she says. But you'd best make sure you kill me instantly and burn the corpse. You have an impressive defense there, but it won't stop me from rotting your insides until your lungs spill out your anus. You're known to us, Plague Mage, Sky growls. You can't kill me without killing half the city. Debatable, Penelope argues. Believe it or not, I have remarkably little experience with killing people. I won't know until I try. But if I'm going to end up dead anyway, well, what do I care for the consequences? Slowly he lowers his arm, his storm of debris still whirling. Why are you even here? Sky spits. What's your game, noble? I am here because Vita asked, and I quote, want to meet a mob boss with me? Penelope answers. And she is my friend, I suppose, so I said yes. As for my game I am posturing, obviously. Just like both of you have been doing, except you're both horrible at it so I'm taking over now. You don't get to. You want Vita on your team, don't you? Penelope asks. Then quit faffing about and make your pitch. You want to kill the king, right? Your Capita spilled the beans on that already, by the way. In riddle, admittedly, but it was not very difficult to figure out. Well, sell us on it. Go on. If you're so sure of this, Sky asks slowly, why don't I have the army or the Templars on my doorstep? A bit naive of you to assume that either the nobles or the Templars would mind if the king suffered an unfortunate accident, Penelope answers smoothly. I wouldn't be surprised if a dozen nobles know of your plan, or are even covertly funding it. Your hatred of our government is not poorly founded, your response is just poorly considered. You know nothing of what I intend, Sky dismisses. Then make your pitch, Penelope insists. I have better things to do today than entertain a terrorist. Penelope smiles serenely as Sky stares her down. Don't bother, I say, walking forward. I really don't care. I step past Sky and grab the battered, bruised man that took the bribe so my sister could die by the collar of his shirt. Sky scowls. The suffering in your life, the wretched pain of starvation and disease and neglect that is also worthy of revenge, isn't it? I failed to protect your family. I admit to that. But where I failed for a single, horrible moment, the fat pigs that ran this city into the ground for no reason beyond their own greed failed your family for your entire life. They have a responsibility in the same way I did. I frown. That's annoyingly true. Sure, they didn't get anyone in my family killed, but I know a lot of dead children in general that could have very well been a brother or sister in the same way Angelian was. That's admittedly convincing, I concede. But I see no reason to view you as the solution. I'm not going to just drop everything and join up with people that have only made my life worse. I lift the bribe taker off his feet, which of course requires me to hold him above my head. I'm not sure what I'll do with him. I probably should use him to experiment with animancy, and see what other sorts of shards I can make. I just don't like the idea of giving his life any sort of worth. An understandable position, Sky answers me. So I have a proposition for you. Don't join us, but don't stop us either. We'll quit bothering you, you quit bothering us. No more murdering my men, no more getting in our way, and I leave you and your family alone. I frown, considering that. You still have to pay for Angelian, I answer. But I can agree to wait while you kill people both of us don't like. You go do your plan, take over the city or whatever, and we can resume our beef afterwards. How long will it take you? Sky thinks for only a short moment. 3 months, he answers. Let's establish a 3-month truce. Deal, I say, shaking the bastard in my hands. Your peace offering here is worth 3 months at the least. You got a bag for this guy? The talk doesn't last much longer after that. Sky seems a bit grumpy with the outcome, but I get the feeling the whole conversation is just a favor to his crazy, riddle-spewing girlfriend more than anything. He'd personally be happy blasting a hole through my head. Which is, of course, why I take the truce. I need time to get stronger still, so I can kill him without taking too large of a risk. I glance down at my short little companion, at her smooth, unblemished skin. At the toned muscles growing underneath it. Her frame, her face, pointed away from me of course, all of it part of my own design except the 2 piercing blue eyes that gaze insistently in every direction but my own. I hear the whispering knowledge in the back of my mind that I would need a very special disease indeed to destroy her, ignore it like I do all the others, and focus instead on the excitement I feel at a good plot. I can't help but grin. Of course she's planning to betray him. I should have never doubted her. Earlier is of course better, I opine. It frankly depends on the amount of time you need to be ready for such a betrayal. She says nothing, thoughts whirring behind those beautiful, inhuman eyes. Okay, I'll try to figure that out. I have a good idea of how much his soul can take now. By the way, do you want this guy Sky gave us? I don't really want to be anywhere near him, so you can experiment on him as much as you like. A shudder of anticipation, alongside many other feelings fills my body with a foreign warmth. How can she just say that? How can she just give me a human as a gift, not only knowing about but being perfectly content with the sort of horrors I long to enact upon his flesh? I am third Lady Penelope Vesuvius, and I must regretfully admit that I have rather inconveniently fallen in love. I'm even tempted to remove the failsafe I implanted that lets me quickly kill her, but I know that would just be madness. Love. What a strange emotion. At least, assuming what I feel is love, it is. This is different, very different, to anything I have ever experienced before. Her presence is a comfort and an ease the likes of which I cannot remember ever feeling. Why did it have to be Vita, of all people? I suppose she appeals to the broken, clawing parts of me, makes my instincts feel content and understood. I feel like a child, clinging to the first imbecile that offered me a smidgen of affection. Look at her. A self-destructive, ignorant fool that personifies the very kind of monster that I've been taught I must never be. Powerful and confident, utterly irreverent of the very society that I must one day rule. Even as my slave she is no follower, no servant. Some sick part of me wants to see her as queen. I almost make myself chuckle. Vita. Queen. Watcher's eyes, that would be such a disaster. Yet what an amusing and beautiful disaster it would be. Not that it is possible, of course. The lines of royal succession are so complicated and interwoven within the political structure of Skyhope that it would take an event of near-apocalyptic scale to disrupt the churning bureaucracy that defines my life. I can no more break them than I could beat a Templar in a fistfight. Having a living human subject would undoubtedly be invaluable for our research, I agree, allowing my prior train of thought to unravel. Such flights of fancy are a waste of a woman's time. Theodora probably won't like it if we hand her a living human to work on, Vita points out in an uncharacteristically accurate assessment of a possible social issue. I suppose she is prone to being much more caring and observant when it comes to her own servants. If I already love her, would it make any significant difference were I her servant myself? That's a valid point, I respond, but unfortunately I don't have anywhere else to store a human that I intend to perform live experiments on. I'm not sure if you were aware, but that is in fact illegal. Vita blinks in surprise, one of the few facial expressions she still uses with regularity. The poor girl slips deeper into her talent every day, and I am not sure I like what it is doing to her. You seriously don't have anywhere else you perform illegal experiments, she asks me. I have to laugh at that, selecting and executing the appropriate chuckle for a private conversation between friends. Not that my audience will ever appreciate the work and effort necessary to train that to the point where it is automatic. I don't. You're too much of an indulgence, Vita. To anyone else, I would have been quite pleased with myself regarding the double meaning there, but Vita cheats. Not being able to dance words around her is her one great flaw, and it robs me of no end of entertainment. What a cruel irony that such a powerful empath has such a profound lack of empathy. She could be such a perfectly ruthless noble, if only her talent was not animancy. Okay, well, I don't have anything else to do with him, so the offer is open. We can just boil his skin off in an alleyway if you want. I kind of want to see that too. How am I supposed to not fall in love with this girl if she keeps saying things like that? I feel my heart rate elevate just thinking about it. Watching that forbidden temptation, unleashing my most ruinous diseases that I plan alone in the dark hours I'm unable to sleep and the thoughts are too much to resist. A catalogue of 100 cruel and inhuman deaths waits inside my mind, each begging to be unleashed just so I can see them blossom into rapturous perfection, reducing the infinite, glorious complexity of life into a maddened playground, with her standing beside me and not judging, but joining. Vita shrinks a bit herself, eyes unfocusing and pace slowing, ever so slightly. Her face remains as expressionless as ever, but I have made a point of paying attention to this odd little person's habits and I know she is suddenly, profoundly uncomfortable. She's disassociating with her body, putting up the same walls of unawareness that she uses as an automatic reaction to pain. I clamp down on my fantasy. Again. Damn me and my pathetic lack of control, where did it all go? I hate making her uncomfortable like this. I make myself uncomfortable with this, but that is an acceptable and expected part of living. It should be enough that my emotions torture me, but to have them torture my one and only friend? Beyond inexcusable. I've never felt this about anyone before, I don't know how to deal with it. Until now, I didn't think I could be attracted to anyone. I thought it was just another part of me that was broken. Yet here I am, 17 years old and experiencing a childish crush for the first time ever. I laughed at others, honestly I did. The unimaginable self-destruction my so-called peers would get up to in the name of love or even just sex baffled me to the core. Nothing but the expected stupidity of fools, I thought. Yet I am slowly starting to see where their utter abandonment of sense comes from. As far as I can see, there are two primary paths for reconciliation. The first being to change myself, deny my emotions, use self-control to avoid mishaps, and allow myself to return our relationship to how it was before whatever insane thing in my head activated and decided to make me stupid. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be working, so perhaps it is time to move on to the second option. Changing Vita. Not biologically, of course. If I knew how to create or destroy love I would simply do it to myself. But with the right approach, it should be possible to warm her up to the idea of warming me up, so to speak. As far as I can tell, what activated my feelings was intense comfort and understanding more so than any particular interest in her physical body. I was not attracted to Vida before, I've seen her naked enough times to be fully confident with that. Yet it creeped up on me somewhere, and it took nearly our entire trip home from New Talsi after the fool girl publicly announced my feelings to admit that she's right. I feel like I can be myself with her, regardless of what persona I wish to adopt, and that is somehow attractive. No one else is like that, certainly, but that is not how I was ever taught to believe attraction works. Perhaps it's one of those things people allow their biases to misinterpret for them. So under that assumption, I can posit that her lack of reciprocation is simply because such comfort is not mutual. Vida, you know I would love to do that, but I think using him as a test subject is going to be ideal, I tell her, continuing the conversation with appropriate timing. Conversations are slow. Part of me wishes to know cognomancy simply so that I can inject information into people's brains instead of going through the exasperating oversimplification of concepts required by converting thought to language. Would you like to drop him off at our lab first, or should we head straight to see your family? The house I got them is fairly nearby. Vida shrugs, still in her unfocused state. Why is her comfort not the same as my own? She likes me, she trusts me. She has demonstrated each. There are parts of her I understand that I know no one else does, for they are the very parts no one but her understands about me. Is this not enough? Either is fine, Vida answers. I suppose there are many parts of who I am which she does not and will never understand, but they are the parts that are differently me. I am Third Lady Penelope Vesuvius, for I was forged into Third Lady Penelope Vesuvius. She is a careful and exquisite sculpture, the result of intense effort and tutelage. She is the wall between the world and my true self, a dear and essential aspect of who I am, but due to her inherent nature as an artificial front she is not a part of me that I ever want to be understood. She is a mask, an enigma, the natural result of a person born and raised to rule, and I use her as my sword and shield. So what front that Vida puts on have I failed to crack? What truth to her person is she not comfortable placing in my hands? Try again, I tell her, snapping my fingers in front of her face. Does your family want to see you dragging in a body bag containing the man that got your sister killed? She thinks about that for a moment, focusing once more. I wonder if I'm going to need to end up killing Johann. The man seems to genuinely care about me, so ideally I could trust him to remain an ally even after I call off the marriage, but the risk of him interfering is significant. My backup plan is an interesting enough man, but the very thought of marrying him is revolting. Not because I find him personally distasteful, but because resorting to such a thing will only happen if I fail to make myself First Lady Vesuvius on my own merits. I cannot stomach such weakness, yet I cannot justify removing my safety net either. Perhaps I should just push Johann to eliminate as much power from the church as possible and see if they assassinate him in retaliation. That would be the ideal outcome. Right, you're right, Vida says casually. I should definitely see if Lynn or the kids want to beat him up at all. Not at all what I was expecting, but that puts a smile on my face. Predictable people are droll. Still, I have wasted enough time pontificating about pursuing my own slave as a love interest, especially considering the all-pervasiveness of the thought lately. I force my mind to busy itself with more practical spell designs, theorizing and categorizing, chipping slowly away at problems I would normally be writing down if not for the risk of my notes being discovered. Soon we arrive at the home I picked out for her, the result of a painstaking number of hours analyzing and weighing the many aspects I knew she would most value in a place to live with the practicalities of location, cost, and social status. I do not mention nor anticipate recognition for this work, knowing better than to expect more than a mumbled thank you from the tactless girl, but I derive my satisfaction from seeing the visible approval in her posture, eyes actually taking in the location with excitement and awe. It's a proper stone house, single story, but spacious enough to avoid the cramped conditions inherent to her life before now. The front of the building is visible enough to deter crime, and the back of the building has easily defensible windows, connecting to an alleyway with long enough sightlines to prevent any unwanted guests from hanging about unseen. The indoor bathroom is properly and professionally connected to Skyhope's sewer system to prevent both unwanted smells in the house and unwanted vulnerability for anyone needing to relieve themselves in the night. 2 hidden, lockable stone coverings hide hatches into a safe house and sewer access, respectively, giving her family a place to hide the questionably legal goods they will no doubt acquire and a method of entering and exiting the abode unseen. It is perfect, it is thanks to me, and her whole family knows it. 3 of the children approach me. Basra, Yari, and Sonia, I believe. Each of them hold likely stolen gifts, 2 bundles of flowers and a small pastry. Pointless and wasteful, considering I have nowhere to put flowers and no need to eat an inexpertly constructed dessert, but Third Lady Penelope Vesuvius accepts them with dignity, as one must do when receiving thanks. The interaction gives me time to look over the state of their health, allowing myself to be satisfied by the progress I have made. Each one of the children possesses different modifications, experimental improvements to their bodies which hypothetically should not impact them negatively but still needed testing on someone. Yari in particular possesses the enhanced bone structure I have been considering applying to Vita, and eventually myself, so I am very pleased to see he seems hardy and healthy. I am growing a few smaller, redundant hearts in Basra, which will be the first step towards enabling her to survive a significant chest wound. One of the other children, Jared, possesses the other step, a rapid sealant that should greatly improve his ability to stem blood loss if his body goes into shock. I have of course tested all of these improvements on animals in my spare time, and inferior versions of these current designs are present within my own body, but having more willing subjects to experiment on has allowed me to significantly speed up my learning process. Well, for a certain definition of willing, I suppose. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. It's going to make them harder to kill, ideally, and that has been a contentious point in this household lately. Glad to see your home safe, Vita, Rowan says, emerging from a side room behind the tide of children. How did the mission go? Vita winces, actually visibly winces. Poor thing. We were sent out with 3 senior hunters, all of whom died. So I sort of had to do my thing, and then the whole team knew, and then Nora also tragically died to the monster, I intone for her. I watch as Lynn and Rowan both let shock and sadness bloom on their faces, each more than capable of interpreting my implication. The children react with mixtures of indifference and mild disappointment, already quite hardened against the shock of death. Nora hadn't even been one of their own, just a nice woman who played with them. This is the sort of stock Vita hails from. A dull fury warms my chest, reminding me that every virtue a noble is called to strive for has never manifested in actions, not outside the walls of the center city. The country I love is well and truly rotten. So like with all things, my job is to heal it, as no one else seems competent enough for the task. I kneel down, motioning one of the kids over so I can start my casting. Vita makes me feel comfortable and safe, but the rest of her family are just people to me, more chaff important only by their relationship to her and my obligations to them. I have no desire and a very limited patience for engaging in pleasantries, so I am quick to immerse myself in work. First, the diagnostic spells. A beautiful and intricate mix of biomancy, metamancy, and very technically a small dab of cognomancy, though it is the kind everyone is quick to make arguments over why it is not technically cognomancy to stream information into one's own mind, in the same way that is not really an inherent form of natural animancy to manipulate one's own soul. And true enough, that small portion of the spell which interprets biological data into a form the caster can understand has been of little help towards my actual forays into researching cognomancy, but the hypocrisy amuses me nonetheless. I run my hand over the child's body, analyzing bone and muscle and comparing the two with my mental records of the subject's prior examination, marking growth and change. I note each red flag which pops up in my mind, a weakness here, a minor injury there. I track unnatural alterations I applied, which on this child take the form of what will eventually be an extra-human level of flexibility. I follow the diagnostic spell with more direct physical examination, bending their fingers back and watching the joints twist the other way, lying with easy reassurances about how some people are just like this and it's perfectly normal, and surely you can make all the other kids jealous with the cool tricks only you will be able to do. They seem immediately mischievous on the matter, which will hopefully prove enjoyable enough to prevent any problems from coming back my way. Is human experimentation really wrong if my experiments are happy about it? I say no. Besides, the sort of work I'm doing on these children would beggar a lesser merchant, let alone the family of my slave. I'm entitled to this other form of recompense, surely. Even odds on whether Vita would be approving or furious about these alterations, however, so I'll keep them a secret. Promising to tell her things is a bit difficult when there is so much I don't want her to know. The rest is fairly routine. Spell upon spell to encourage the body to heal itself, not in the way it thinks it should heal, but in the way I know it must. Many claim that the Mistwatcher designed our bodies, and if that is true I can only laugh at how pathetic a god it must be. Those that tout our forms as if they are indescribably perfect temples could not possibly be more ignorant as to how fundamentally moronic the human being is. An incalculable number of diseases and disorders are merely the result of our bodies being incredibly stupid, following some insane programming that does not apply to the situation that requires fixing. There is no wisdom in our creation, only a chaotic mess which cares little if we die or suffer. The intellect is exceedingly superior to nature, and in a quarter of an hour I have removed more pain from the body of this child than years of natural healing could have even started to dent. Then I do it 10 more times. I am intensely aware that it used to be 11, memories of a sobbing Vita holding a child's corpse in her arms fresh and fiery in my mind. Angelian was only going to be able to regenerate new teeth in the event that hers were damaged, at least, so she's far from the worst of them that we could have lost. Then I finally get to work on Vita herself. It's so very odd how it feels now. She used to just be another patient, another thing to correct. Now I find myself second-guessing each alteration, crafting a list in my mind of what I wish to do to her so long that her treatments might start taking hours. Yet today, that is not even my only set of tasks. Today I get to view one of her eyes and observe a rare and beautiful example of natural biomancy. Natural biomancy. As if Vita did not have enough talents. She sits down in front of me and I have to pull her face closer to mine to get a proper look at her evolving visual structure. Although, I am not immune to appreciating other advantages of this position. I am going to use a light bit of kineticism to grab your eye and move it, if that's all right, I tell her, adding the last bit mostly because it's polite. I'm already casting the spell. Sure, Vita acquiesces immediately, shrugging with indifference. Goodness gracious, do people tend to panic when I grab their eyeballs and start pulling them around, but Vita couldn't care less. One hand gripped firmly around her chin and the other directing my spell, I ensure that my mana sight is on and set it to see both natural mana and Vita's unique variation before snatching her eye and holding it still. Vita does not so much as flinch, her body going just slack enough to allow me to move it however I need without being too floppy to stay in position. Even when I turn her head to the side and start pulling on the eye enough to stretch it slightly out of the socket, she doesn't react. Which is good, because it gives me the time I need to see minute fractions of her mana passing through little invisible channels in her body, entering the eye and being formed as if by a talent into glorious, beautifully complex biomancy. As I suspected, her iris is becoming substantially larger, blending in with her rapidly darkening sclera in a manner that evokes an image of the blue consuming the white, infecting and overcoming it. Not that this is at all literally occurring, as the vast majority of her eye structure is staying the same, merely changing in color, size, and minute differences in shape. I can see the form her mana takes as it coaxes the eyes to gently conform to whatever bit of her soul insists they must look a new way, and I resolve to decode the structure in my spare time. You mind if I take this eye? I ask. I can regenerate it in a week or so. Go for it, Vita grunts, and I quickly sever her optic nerve and pop it out, weaving a spell to halt her blood flow only to see her not start to bleed. I see you've improved that technique, I murmur. Yeah, gotta pinch off the major blood squirty bits rather than just try to hold the blood in, she explains. It was obvious once you pointed it out. I am immediately stuck between a bit of indignation at hearing her call arteries and veins, blood squirty bits, and a bit of a rush at knowing Vita can locate and precisely interact with them after 2 tries, just because I pointed it out. I still cast the spell, of course, healing her up as I quickly seal her eyeball into a small glass container. If I'm honest, I'm not actually sure why I wanted to take it. It was just a whim. No more mana flows within it, it's merely a former part of Vita. A physical representation of the edge she and I both teeter on, half human and half something else. I place it firmly back in a pocket underneath my armor, trying to ignore the twinge in my head that shouts about how I should not be seen in public with such an unclean, unadorned outfit. I recognize the intense satisfaction I get from being able to customize the appearance of the person I am attracted to as a bit perverse, but every noble has her vices. And speaking of appearance customization. Alright, I'm done, I announce. Miss Lin, if it is not too much trouble, I would like to change your face. Vita silently gets up and starts to stretch, winking her empty eye socket and wrinkling her nose. Lin and Rowan both turn to stare at me, once again quickly picking up on my implications but not seeming terribly enthused about the matter. Your current one is plastered in quite a few guard houses, I remind her. And if you are caught, you are no longer the only one that will get in trouble. Yeah, it's just a weird thing to ask someone out of the blue, you know. Lin hedges. I like your face as is, Rowan agrees. I huff in annoyance, suppressing an undignified roll of my eyes as I wait for them to stop letting stupid noises fall out of their mouth. You love her, Rowan, I say, avoiding my desire to gag as I supply an appropriate platitude to the situation, so you are going to love her face no matter what it is. That traps him out of the conversation. It is not as though he can argue that point, even if it happens to be untrue. I focus my attention on Lin, as she actually matters and is still on the fence. At least I can take heart in the fact that he is a smart enough man to not suggest using an illusion to mask her. Anyone with an illusory face would be detected immediately by a half-decent magic-wielding guard, since it would require a persistent enchantment. Altering the face, however, only requires a spell to initiate change, and the time to allow that change to settle permanently, after which her face will be no more magical than it is currently. She hedges and whines a little, but after a few more quick twists of rhetoric I have her on my side, pushing magic into her head. I will have to return every day for a week or 2 to finish the work, but I should be doing that anyway for the children and it will result in one less problem when I'm done. In the end, it turns out that Vita's family wanted nothing to do with the man in the bag who got her sister killed. So, once I am done with my work, the 2 of us depart for our laboratory with the living baggage in tow. I'm genuinely impressed at how casually Vita can walk around with a human being in a sack and make it seem natural. We make it downstairs, Vita's disturbing undead slime child hopping onto her shoulders. Even carrying a man twice her weight she doesn't seem impacted, although she quickly dumps our new experiment out on the floor as if she was tossing sewage over the outer walls. Theodora and Margaret, both emerging at the time, jump in surprise to see the bound and bruised man lying unconscious on the floor. "Who's that, Mom?" Vitamin asks. If Theodora was capable of paling any further, I have no doubt she would. The woman is not only a remarkable genius, but a fantastic case study on animancy and its effects on the mind in general. She is for whatever reason remarkably capable of maintaining autonomy in the face of forces constantly eroding her individual impulses. A lot of what we do here is against her personal morals, but much like so many people with metamancy talents of her ilk, the temptation to learn and experiment has little trouble finding purchase on any excuse. Vita's mental alterations provide that excuse quite easily, most of the time. This might be a little over her limit, however. Not to worry, I will handle the live subject personally, I reassure her. No one is going to be asking you to work on him. It's not enough, obviously, Theodora would prefer us to not have the man at all. But it helps, and she nods a brief thank you in my direction. If anyone is liable to ruin this operation, it is Theodora. All she has to do is step outside and start yelling for attention, and everything we have done is gone. I have therefore made it a priority to try and befriend her, obviously not something I consider a strength, but I have been making slow progress. If Vita passes Theodora's personal moral event horizon, I will hopefully be enough to dissuade her from taking drastic action. This is assuming, of course, that Theodora is physically capable of acting directly against Vita at all, but one does not plan for the best-case scenario and nothing else. Theodora starts, we believe. We figured out the soul sight spell. Margaret blurts. Vita. Can we see your soul? She turns to face them, eye focusing. Vita smiles, warm and genuine and very nearly human. Of course. I would love you to. Oh. Is that what I'm missing? I focus very, very carefully on Margaret's hands as she casts our first step into true learned animancy, an utterly and completely illegal branch of magic that is without a doubt our best bet for achieving true immortality. Immortality. The ultimate goal of medicine, an undoubtable, inarguable feat of worth, the future First Lady Vesuvius's gift to the throne, and a power that I want more than anything. Right now, however, I just want to see what she sees. Margaret finishes her cast and her eyes go wide, letting a shaky breath into her dead flesh as she gazes upon a small girl with such rapturous reverence that I am certain she's moments away from falling on her knees. Theodora very pointedly does not cast, though I know she must be capable of the spell. She fears it. She fears what she will see. I take her aside, serving the dual purpose of allowing her an excuse to avoid looking and getting her to ensure I am casting the spell correctly. She guides my hands, and even with my skill it takes nearly 10 minutes before we are comfortable with having me try to cast the spell for real. Neither of us have any idea what kind of chaos magic we might risk from a failed animancy spell, and neither of us wants to know. Then I cast it. A brilliant sapphire blue, as deep as eternity, stares back at me as my breath catches, my mind racing desperately to identify the metaphors I require to comprehend the sight before me. 5 yet 10 yet 20 shimmering translucent tentacles extrude from an eye-like core, of which I see now that Vita's physical eyes are becoming but a pathetic, fractional imitation. Each spiritual limb twists and moves in purposeful patterns, scratching her skin, pushing stray hairs from her eyes, wrapping around her arms and legs, grasping through the floor and walls, pulling out tiny souls of the insects and vermin hiding within. I cannot count them, there are as many as there need to be, never giving the impression that they appear or disappear yet somehow gone when no longer in use. Not even that is the whole of her, however. Veins of energy pulse through her body, twisting through where I know bone and muscle and organ and heart reside, an intricate web of mastery over her physical form, waiting to be unlocked and perfected. Oh, if I had known. If I had known she could be this. This changes so many of my plans, so many of my enhancements were far from the perfection I thought they could be to her. She is so much more than I could have possibly dreamed of. I want that. I want that power. I want to wrap my heart with that energy and feel it beat the way she does. What glorious gift is this? What is she? What more can she become? Dozens of motes of light. In all colors softly glimmer within her, a gorgeous artistic beauty in their own right if not for how thoroughly she overshadows them. She notices my staring, and for the first time ever I see her react with that pleasant sort of embarrassment one gets when complimented about something both private and dear to the heart. This is not an emotion she can duck away from her body to avoid, because I finally see the truth of her. The eye remaining in her head looks at nothing, but her true eye, not the imitative grasping of her flesh, stares my way. She doesn't need to ask anything. No shy yet preening, "Do you like it?" coming from a boring fool girl trying on clothes her mother won't approve of. This is Vita, and she feels my overwhelming awe. In that moment, I can truly believe she is a goddess. Then I snap out of that stupid idea. This will certainly help with the experimentation, I say, clearing my throat. A first great step. Excellent work, Theodora, Margaret. I managed to tear my gaze away from her long enough to nod their way, forcing my thoughts out of their grinding halt and back into something resembling a professional demeanor. I have important work to do here and I can't let myself be distracted, no matter my feelings. With a quick request to Vitamin, I obtain her assistance lifting and transporting our live subject into a side room, away from the others. I have two major problems I need to solve. 1. How to utilize our new human subject in a non-wasteful way, which is to say, how to take advantage of him in a manner that could not be substituted by an animal. I must have her. After all the crap I've been getting lately about not looking at people, finally someone is looking at me. Two people, actually, and they feel the same way about the sight. I feel very differently about each reaction, however. The response from my revenant is to be expected. They love me and they are in awe of me by nature. It is a comforting and happy feeling, one that makes me want to love them back. They are so pure, so pleasant, so mine. Vitamin is mine, my beautiful daughter for as long as she wishes to be. Margaret is mine, my sweet and earnest little genius. Theodora is mine, no matter how much she strays, and she will always have a place at my side whenever she desires it. Yes, I know I forced these feelings on them. Yes, I know that's wrong, that's fake, and that I will destroy anyone who tries to do the same to anyone I care about. But the artificial, forcibly imposed source of that affection doesn't make them any less comforting to me. The disturbing implications are a secondary issue, one that contrasts but does not lessen the love. So ultimately, warmth and appreciation fill me when Margaret calls me beautiful, even though I can expect no less. Yet when Penelope feels the same, that is, I don't know what that is. I didn't believe that she would look at me with anything more than the clinical, barely passing interest she tends to show every part of the reality I live when I describe it to her. She wants to be an animancer herself, a position that we both know is unlikely to be healthy or wise. Still, she strives for it, and to her my whole world was nothing but a stepping stone on her path to power. I don't have the time to process any of this before she and Vitamin emerge from the side room after securing the man I brought. Immediately, she starts staring at me again. I can't believe she's staring at me. Actually at me. What do I do? In a moment of confused panic I break the stare off by waving a tentacle her way. An amused, twitching smile invades her expression and after only a brief delay she waves back. The moment passes, and so does the intense weight of her attention. She approaches, pulling a chair up next to me and sitting down, leaning forward so she's eye level not with my head, but the soul in my belly. So, she says to me, carefully keeping the overwhelming emotion bubbling through her out of her voice. Tentacle eyeball. I see what you mean about being similar to the Mistwatcher more than ever, now. So to say hello, do I, She holds out a hand as if to shake. Ha! Didn't I tell her before? I know I did. Still, I respond with an amused shrug and pass a tentacle through it. I can only touch myself and souls, I say. The disappointment in Penelope is real, yet she reacts as if she expected the answer. Already, she's plotting something. So what allows you to touch yourself? Penelope asks slowly. It seems like an awfully arbitrary distinction. Your body is made of HRM. Are you perhaps actually touching the veins of soul lining throughout your body? No, I explain, using my tendrils to poke around at some exposed skin. I didn't used to have those anyway. I'm definitely touching my body. Do you think there might be some way for me to touch other things? I ask the obvious question and feel her slide another piece of her plan into place. Damn it. She's supposed to make plots for me, not about me. What is this for? I don't see why it wouldn't be possible, Penelope confirms, but I don't have the faintest idea how it works. Certainly something to look into. Assuming you'd like to be able to touch other things, of course. I would. Of course I would. The less I have to rely on meat the better. I nod to tell her as such, and another piece falls into place for her. I guess it's okay if her plot revolves around helping me learn cool tentacle tricks. Well, I would be more than happy to investigate and see if we can figure out a way to make that work, Penelope offers. As well as any other ideas you might have on improvements. I can see that your own plans for that body substantially outstrip my former ambition. I blink. She's back to normal. Okay, that's good. Don't know what she means, though. My plans? You're not doing it on purpose, she mumbles, mostly to herself. Vita. You are far more than a natural animancer. This what you're doing to yourself, the eyes but also inside, it's biomancy. You are changing yourself from within, far more than a normal human enhancing themselves via a powerful soul could manage. I frown, thinking about that. My initial reaction is to argue no, I'm just pulling myself around with my soul rather than my muscles mostly. But Penelope is a genius biomancer, and she probably knows what she's talking about. What sort of things am I doing to myself? I ask, not sure what I want her to say. Well, that's the thing. A lot of it is fairly standard, like the natural improvements to durability I told you to expect eventually. A lot of the rest I don't know. It's truly fascinating, I've never seen biomantic mana formations that look like this. They are biomancy, that much I can be certain of. The basic structure is comprehensible to me, but on a whole it is far more complicated than any spell I know. It's a full-blown talent in its own right, a powerful one. Your body is doing something to itself and I don't know what. But I am certainly excited to find out. I would love to investigate, even help it along as much as I can if you want me to. I guess whether or not I want it helped along depends on whether or not I like what it's doing, I hedge. Could you not see this before the soul stuff? Well, that's the interesting part. These veins of soul flowing through your body, they are not just animantic faux musculature. They are mana channels, delivering your. She trails off for a moment, suddenly coming to the realization. Same color blue, she mumbles to herself. Would it make the atmosphere? No, there's no way to test that, not without a kinemancer of impeccable precision. Penelope, I don't know what any of that means, I answer, squirming uncomfortably. Look, do you need me for anything right now? You guys figured out the soul sight spell and that's cool. Does that mean you have any work for me to do or not? A flash of frustrated disappointment fills my friend, but she shakes her head. You are welcome to go, we have plenty of biomancy problems to solve. Apologies for the fit of fervor, Vita. I just feel as though I certainly understand you a lot better. You are actually quite good at eye contact, aren't you? I scratch my cheek with a tentacle, embarrassed despite myself. Well, it's much easier to see emotions with my core pointed in the right direction, I explain. I can usually figure it out, but my directional soul sight is a lot more precise. Yes, precise, Penelope mutters to herself, eyes peering deeply within me. I watch her stare as if at a gorgeous vista, like the awe I first felt when I gazed beyond the confines of Skyhope's walls. She gazes as if seeing a world opening up, a beauty unlike anything her life had ever previously comprehended, and it's at me. I don't know if I've ever felt this self-conscious before. She continues to stare until it's finally too much for me to handle. Squirming and blushing, I cover my core in my own tentacles, using them as a writhing wall against further examination. This doesn't seem to make Penelope any less interested, but it does make her snap out of her fugue and recognize my discomfort. I feel her chide herself immediately, a spark of self-directed fury passing in an instant before she primly smiles as if none of it happened. Well. This is truly an impressive spell, she says, trying and failing to mask the source of her emotion, but we should get back to work. Margaret, Theodora, we have much to plan. What are you going to do, Vita? You I don't know. I stammer, still flustered, still hiding in my cocoon of tendrils. I know. Vitamin announces happily. Take me to see Grandma and Grandpa. Theodora and Margaret and Penelope finished my cool girl tats. I'm not going to be detected as a creepy magical construct. Probably. Penelope glances over my way with obvious disapproval, but Theodora shrugs. You'll have to test it eventually, the Metamancer says, genuinely approving of taking the Revenant outside. May as well get her some fresh air. Ah, she likes Vitamin. My little girl must have grown on her. Ugh, I wish I had my tattoos back, Margaret complains. They are my tattoos and always were, Theodora snaps. Yeah, I know, Margaret grumbles. Sorry. It just doesn't feel that way. It's a Nora thing. But, I mean, if we can spare some of the metal. I think we will need it for the current project, Penelope insists. What we are doing is not something we can skimp on power for. Of course, yeah, Margaret sighs. We'll see what we can do, but I think I've asked Mom for enough metal for now, I say. I hope she takes it easy. Although she probably won't. I guess I'm off, then. Come on, Vitamin. Heck yeah. Vitamin cheers. I get to see the city for the first time. She hops up on my shoulders and I chuckle a bit, giving her a friendly soul tickle before heading up the stairs. It's not a very long walk between the lab and my family's home anymore, which is very convenient. Me again. I announce, rapping on the front door. And I brought someone special. Rowan opens the door, jumping back a little as he sees Vitamin laughing playfully on my shoulders. He quickly ushers me inside. Should you be having her, you know? He hisses softly. Sure. I say. Some really smart dead people think it'll be fine. The kids swarm out from around the house and I lift Vitamin off my shoulders and place her on the ground. Now you be good, Vitamin. Normal people are very fragile, so don't accidentally break anyone's neck or something, okay? I give her some crushed delicious soul dust, knowing that she will of course not harm a fly if I don't want her to. Her soul drinks it greedily, apparently quite eager to grow. So I crush another shard for her. I can't let my poor zombie daughter go hungry, can I? If occasionally tossing food at and otherwise ignoring my child isn't parenting, I don't know what is. Speaking of, Lynn grabs me from behind and lifts me up into a hug. Well, hello again. We get to see you twice before you gallivant off into the wilderness again, do we? That's quite a treat. Mom. I'm just busy. I yelp, kicking my legs. You don't have to worry or anything, I kick forest monster butt. Oh. Do you now? Let's see. She drags me past the gaggle of children into an empty part of the house before dropping me, leaning back, and earning herself Mother of the Year by tossing a knife at me. I jump in surprise a little, but catch it by the handle before even turning around to face her. It was just a slow lob, nothing that could have ever actually hit me. What's this for? I ask. Rowan told me you've been picking fights with powerful people, Lynn says, all smiles as she draws another knife. I'm ashamed to have let you develop such bad habits at such a young age. Do you really think I'm going to feel safe seeing you leave the city when you do things like that? I scowl a bit. I'm one of the strongest people in the guild now, Mom. Can't you feel that? Sure, Lynn answers casually, hopping on the balls of her feet. My danger sense tells me to shit my britches and run until I jump off the edge. But I'll believe it when I see it. Let's fight. I'm not going to fight you, I grumble. Why not, kiddo? Lynn asks immediately, flashing shit-eating grin. I scowl. I'm not a kiddo. I don't know, it takes a pretty small kid to not even be able to beat up a grandmother. Little baby kiddo. I don't want to hurt you, I say, narrowing my eyes. Well, good news. Lynn answers. Kids can't hurt me. You've got nothing to worry about. Okay, maybe I'll just hurt her a little bit. Lynn? Rowan asks, hesitantly stepping into the room. I think you shouldn't. No, it's fine, I growl, cutting him off. Let's spar, Mom. Rowan doesn't get a chance to finish his sentence, because I'm already lunging in for a stab.